Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and MBs, and welcome to Warui Deshou's second stream. First of our premium podcast, but still, one we've been doing for a little bit longer now, and we're back with a brand new show that is from a ways back, but still as amazing as it ever was. I am, of course, Enoshima Shadon. Yeah, I'm getting that joke out of the way quickly.
The drunkard.
The drunkard, yeah. Well, that's the other show.
Right.
I assure you that I'm not always a drunkard. I promise you, I'm not always a drunkard. I'm not always a raging alcoholic. But cheers. In case there's any ambiguity, yes, this is alcohol.
None.
But yes,
there's no ambiguity.
There's no ambiguity there. Joining me, of course, from good old Tennessee, the state doctor club from Showa Genroku Rakshinjo. I almost butchered that horribly. Is, of course, the Soul Doctor.
Hi, Shadon. Hello, friends. I hope everyone is doing well and as safe and healthy as they could possibly be. Very, very excited to do this show. A little bit scared to do it also for reasons that I'll get into when we talk about it. But no, this is going to be good. It's
okay, Donnie. If you need to bail at any point, you can just simply tell everyone to look over there. And
as my screen fills up with water and my face distorts into a troll-like shape, you'll.
Oh, it's quite okay. What I'm going to do once this video is actually uploaded is I'm going to cut all of it together into reels of film, and it's going to be all my worst bits and most embarrassing moments.
I know. You just replay them over and over.
Oh,
and then in the middle of the night, you sit up and respond to it as you should have done at the time. We've all fucking been there.
Yeah, this show is incredibly relatable in many ways. But to not dance around the issue too much, this is Tsuritama, a show in which I have an odd relationship with because I have seen some of it, but not all of it. And when I say seen some of it, I've actually seen half of it. But then that fell by the wayside, so now I'm rediscovering it again. So I'm in a kind of odd position where I know things. I know that's a surprise to you all. It's especially a surprise to me.
Things. Yeah.
But I also don't know things about it. So we're going to see how that progresses, of course. This particular stream series, by the way, is dedicated to one of our patrons, MirrorOnTheWall, who actually requested this particular show. So shout outs to you, Mirror, for requesting and give us the opportunity to talk about this amazing piece of work. Thank you very much for that. This one is for you.
Shouts to you, Mirror. Hope that you're doing as well as you can be. Shadon, when you said you know things, it made me want to ask you.
When did this happen? When did this happen? How did it feel to experience it for the first time?
No, right, yeah. What was it like when the alien first showed up at your house to request to live with you? No, it made me want to know, have you ever been fishing?
The answer to that is no, I have not.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I have been fishing on a number of occasions, and I'm no Prince Natsuki. By no stretch am I able to assemble my rod as your action hero takes apart his gun to clean it in a film. It reminds me of he could just take apart the rod down to the screws and clean it and reassemble it. That's not me. I've been with my family a couple times though, and it was super fun. I would recommend it. If the thought itself of what's happening to the fish doesn't bother you, because in that case, then it's not for you. But it's actually really, really relaxing, and I've enjoyed every time that I've gone, even though I've never really caught anything.
Well, you know what? Maybe you should try again after watching this show, and it gives you a couple of pointers on technique and all that.
Go atomic or I did refer to my rod.
Yes, you did refer to your rod.
Oh man!
I hope you wind your rod in.
This is a family show. We're commenting on a family show, not this podcast, but this anime. So yeah, how wonderful. And yeah, we are starting a little bit early due to the time shenanigans. So to all the folks in the UK, sorry about that. The chat is not in Restream. it is, since we're not using Restream, so that's why it looks a little bit different on the output. Because Restream was the reason we were having all the YouTube problems with Second Stream and
fuck that off then.
and Deshou the Third. I still will use it for the stream of thought, but like for the time being, just gonna go straight through YouTube. So if you want to follow along, then it'll just be in YouTube chat. So. Like,
I
keep
reading.
reading.
I've now the chat.
Okay,
so I can follow what's going on here and just not look very confused if all that possible.
Okay, that
right.
is good. But
fishing,
fishing, do recommend.
Fishing, yeah. Well, the funny thing you say that is that where I lived as a kid, there was a pond not too far away, and people fished there. And even as a kid, I thought to myself, there is nothing there. This pond is tiny. What on earth are they possibly fishing for in there? The only thing that you're going to find in there are possibly hypodermic needles, and maybe if you're unlucky, a World War II bomb that's not blown up. It's like, there ain't no fishing there.
Well, like many things, it's not about the end point. It's about the journey, right? It's about having an excuse to hang out with your buddies on a sunny day. Bring along.
Why I didn't go fishing, because you're assuming it's sunny over here.
Even a cloudy day, right? Just bring and have a nice breeze during a cloudy day, and bring along a cooler full of beers, and depending on how serious you are, like bring some music. I could definitely see people being like, "Shut that shit off! We're trying to fish. I don't want to scare away the fish." but yeah, no, that's, to me, it was always like that. Like, it was just fun going on the boat and like relaxing. And just being in the presence of other people without needing to do small talk and shit, because we're all just like drinking a beer, concentrating, a little bit on our fishing, and it's a very, very relaxing activity, which is nothing like it's presented up to this point in Tsuritama. Fishing has very high personal stakes.
Yes, it certainly does, and we'll get to that soon enough. But I'm glad you actually brought up the whole "have you fished or not" thing, because I have it on good authority from a friend of the pod who actually will be joining us for the final episode of this in a couple of weeks' time, that this actually is incredibly faithful to how fishing works. Like, all the equipment's authentic, all the brands are proper, the techniques are correct, everything like that. And that's going to be relevant to some talking points that we're going to have soon enough, because without getting into it right now, one thing I want to know is that whenever you have something like this, it's like when we talk about sports anime, for example.
Totally.
Like, how much do you get into the rules and how things work and all that? And I think that what Tsuritama does really well, for reasons I will elaborate on later, is that, yes, the technical detail is there. If you fish, you'll be probably giddy with glee at how accurate it is to it, at least as I understand it.
Giddy with glee.
But there's a point to that technical detail. There is a purpose to it within the story. And I'm not saying that, by the way, again, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I'm not saying like having the technical detail in there is bad just because it's there. Like, that could be fine. That could even be interesting for people who might not know anything about it. But this show goes the extra mile in a lot of respects, as it turns out.
Yeah, a lot. 100%. Like, that's the thing you love about, I mean, like you said, sports anime, like the layer of teaching you something, like a fun game or some way to spend your time, like, and then also using that activity as a metaphor for life, or at the very least, like a way to bring young people together to have, drama and see relationships play out.
Yeah, it's also a way of impressing aliens.
Oh, definitely. That's something that fishing has over volleyball, and people love their haiku, but Haru didn't land and go to the haiku boys gym. He's not. He's not after the ultimate spike. He's after the big fish. He wants to catch his big fish. And honestly, it's been so long since I've seen the whole show. So I watched the show, by the way, as it aired in 2012. Hell of a season. This is one of my favorite. We've talked many times before about the Noitamina block, which is just animation spelled backwards, and kind of how the remit of it was like, we're going to have this 1 hour block of interesting animation that is less, not less niche. I mean, because you could argue the fishing anime is a little niche, but like not sort of.
Steak would disagree with you there. Like, they made a lot of bank on pro bass fishing.
That's true.
Just saying.
But I guess what I mean is like things that aren't very otaku bait-ish, or just not like these really kind of fan.
You're not going to reel in the otaku with this one, are you?
Exactly. They're gonna.
I've got a bite. It's an otaku fish. Sorry. Had to get that out there when you said otaku bait. I don't even think you did that deliberately.
I didn't. No. Yeah. What would the bait be if you were trying? Would it be a
It'd be a Hulk pillow. Let's be honest.
A little Black Rock shooter figurine. You'd
it'd be
out there.
It'd be a Nendroid. It'd be a Nendroid. Yeah,
that's exactly.
That would work.
But it aired alongside Kids on the Slope, which is this Shinichiro Watanabe work about music, and we should really watch this for the pod sometime. I know that will make Blue Sea devotee really happy, but that block I loved. I mean, and like I said, I watched Tsuritama as it came out, and I don't think I've seen the whole thing all the way through since then, so it's been 8 years. I have started to do a rewatch. I bought the Blu-ray when I heard no, it was before. It was before I heard it was going off Crunchyroll. I bought the Blu-ray when our friend, a few years ago now, our friend Rexton told me, like, he was talking about the Tsuritama dub and how good it was, and I was like, okay, I really trust your judgment. And so I'm going to check this out. I've been wanting to own this show anyway, and the dub is really good. It's an excellent modern dub, and if you know me, that's saying a lot. I don't really have a much tolerance for dubs, but this one is really good. So having said all that, I don't remember exactly how things end up. So I'm excited to revisit the ending because I've seen the first few episodes a bunch of times, 2 or 3 times, and I'm excited to see where Deku ends up.
Hopefully with a franchisee deal to take their enterprise nationwide. I mean, that's a great for duck curry.
Yeah, duck.
I'm just gonna get this off my system now, because if you know anything about me, people listening at home, you know I'm always brimming with bad jokes, and so I have to get them out like hairballs from a cat. And I'm just gonna say, there is a duck in this show. The duck is named Tapioca, and I know that a duck and a goose are not the same thing. I'm very aware of the ornithological difference. I know that bird watchers and Bill Oddie are very, very mad at me for this. But as far as I'm concerned, that's the same duck, avian creature, whatever you want to call it, from Untitled Goose Game.
It looks very similar. Now that the neck is not as long, but that's like the only difference. So I think Tapioca could pass for our Untitled Goose. Yeah.
Undoubtedly. Maybe we can get some sort of death battle thing going for them too. Who would win in a fight, Tapioca or the Untitled Goose? I don't know.
House needs to make Tapioca a DLC character. Get on it.
Oh wow,
licensing deals.
I mean, I can already get to actually picture the art style of that, and it's just Tapioca chasing Yuki around a garden somewhere. Yeah, it's just here, and it's pretty great. Anyway,
God, Go just awful in chat. So filthy. Please, again,
she's
show.
Always awful in chat.
Family show. Come on.
But that's only because we're awful as well. Like the audience matches the host.
Exactly. Yes.
Just saying. Oh, all right. So to the task at hand, then we're covering episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4 today because due to the fall season, Christmas, all the things getting in the way.
American Thanksgiving.
Yeah. You and your Turkey Day. God damn it. We're going to have to compress things a little bit, so we're going to be doing 3 episodes, 3 pods on Tsuritama, also 3 pods on Showa Raku Shinjo, season 2, just to fit everything in, because otherwise Doc's going to be, doing some really unauthorized and appalling things like spending time with his family.
Exactly.
I didn't agree to this. What? Who the
the
hell
breach of contract. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to, have fun on this.
It's a fireable offense.
Get out.
Apologies. Yeah.
Get out.
I mean, so, on the plus side, you will have all of the Tsuritama content in your ears faster. one 3-week cycle prior to when you normally would. So try to look on the bright side, audience. Hopefully,
This is true.
I mean, because the idea is to have some free weeks over Christmas in particular. But I don't know. We'll figure something out. I mean, we're not going to leave you totally barren content wise.
Yeah, it's fine. I can just fail at Final Fantasy again. That always works. That always plugs the gap quite nicely.
Yeah. There's always
anyway.
more. The fantasy is never final on our stream.
God. It's the never-ending story joke all over again. Anyway, onto the subject at hand, which is if you are listening to this on free-to-air and you might not be familiar with our second stream format, especially if you're coming to this just for Tsuritama and you've not seen us cover anything else prior to this on second stream, when we normally do our mainline pod series, we go through a bit of a plot summary. We've kind of condensed it substantially recently to a 2-minute gag, which has always been a lot of fun. But generally speaking, we go through the plot in detail and then provide context as we go and talking points afterwards. But there is no plot summary to be given here. It is just strictly talking points and contextual information thereof where appropriate. So first off, I'm going to advise you this. If you've already got this show, get it on DVD or Blu-ray if at all possible. I believe it's probably out of print in various sources, which sucks.
I'm going to check on this as you talk.
Yeah, thank you, Doc.
Sure.
It was on Crunchyroll until relatively recently, but then Crunchyroll, in another string of their unfortunate bad decisions, decided not to keep it. Now, okay, that's me being sarcastic and mean. There's probably legal red tape bullshit going on that I'm not privy to that means they couldn't renew it even if they wanted to. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is it's currently not, as I understand it, available to stream anywhere, which sucks. We live in the future and all that, so all this stuff should be available all the time, but it's not because capitalism. Yay!
It's true. People, rights.
Fucking love it.
What the fuck, dude? Like, fucking this show. I'm trying to see if these are just aftermarket or if these are new. According to Amazon, the current price for Tsuritama Complete Collection Blu-ray is $64.98, which is a lot for a 13-episode show that is 8 years old. I guess 7 since it's come out on disc, on home video. On DVD, though, it's substantially cheaper. It's $23.64 because of the outdated format. I'm going to check Sentai's website. Do not pay $60. This is a fantastic show. I love this show. Wait until it goes on sale to buy it. I would not say pay $65 immediately. That may sound bad, but it's just, I swear to God, I bought this 2 years ago for like $20 on Blu-ray.
Yep. Welcome to the world of finding anime, legally at a reasonable price. Reminds me of when Wings of Onomize wasn't currently in print in the UK, so I decided to search for it at the time that this was on. I was like, hey, you know what? I'll see if I can get a hold of it. £200.
Yeah.
Nope. Not for a film. Certainly not for, I got my extended Blu-ray collection, just to give people context, which is the ultimate collection that includes the Black Rose and the regular Rose Bride ring, along with all the art books and such. That was £110. Money well spent. 200 quid for like a Duff DVD rip from somewhere.
Oh,
no,
man.
Don't do that.
I guess
Anyway.
the license expired with Sentai because it's not in their store anymore. And it's not streaming on High Dive. So yeah, I guess so I see on the box that it's a Sentai, but it's also an Aniplex. So maybe it reverted to Aniplex, and that's why the price is high again. Because they are known to charge quite a hefty sum for their video products.
10 million anime dollars per episode.
I mean, do you remember, were you a part of the fandom when Garden of Sinners came out?
I don't even know what Garden of Sinners is, so that means I definitely was not a fan.
Garden of Sinners is like a series of movies from Type Moon, the Fate people. And it's there are like 6 or 8 movies or something like that, and it is a thing that it doesn't have the most giant number of fans, but it has incredibly ardent fans, very, very super fan types of Kara no Kyokya, I think it's called, Garden of Sinners. And it came out over here, originally, and it was like $600. Something
You
insane.
could buy a PS5 for that.
No.
And you could buy a PS5 for that amount of money before there's probably any decent good games out for the PS5 to boot. And also, it's more like suffer from mechanical failure. Just getting my dicks in sideways here. Sorry about that. So to the point at hand, though, get your hands on it legally if you can all possibly do. If you can't, well, my rule's always been this: if I can't obtain something legally, if there's no recourse for me to do that, what the fuck else do you want me to do? You're not selling it in a way that I can get a hold of it. You're not going to get money from it. So fuck it, I'm having it.
Maybe do pay $65 for the Blu-ray. I mean, maybe you just have to, because it ain't going to be on sale at the Sentai store anymore. And I don't know I don't know what the right stuff situation is either. So yeah, you might just have to pay it could just be one of these weird circumstances where now you just have to pay more for it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, to the topic at hand, then, we're going to tackle patron questions first. And if you're not a patron and checking this out when it's free to air, and you think to yourself, hey, you know what? I reckon I might be angling to send these guys a couple of dollars. You know what I mean?
I just took a drink. Be careful. You could end the stream that way.
I tried really hard then to make that happen, but it just didn't work. So, if you've got yourself a couple of dollars to spare, pop on over to patreon.com/Warui Deshou. Check out our tiers. We've got 2 free $5 tiers. The $3 tier will get you access to Tsuritama pods as they come out, and we'll also allow you to ask questions about them as we go. And there's a ton of other great benefits along with that as well. Definitely do check it out. I don't want no halibuts and no excuses, so let's carry on.
Oh, man, God.
What?
You're
don't oh cod me, man.
You're getting real close to bothering me.
Wait, what are you gonna do? You're gonna put me in the haddock?
Oh, you just keep pulling them out of your tackle box.
I know. It's just because you keep getting baited, though. That's the problem.
All right, we have to stop.
We do. This is getting dangerously close to being criminal.
My work has blocked rightstuff.com.
Whoops.
I suppose because they sell adult materials on that website.
I look forward to finding out that there is actually a proper porn website you could access at your work, but not that.
Yeah.
3D boobs, fine. 2D boobs, no. Kill our productivity.
Total, yeah. That's we can have the run of the mill, what's the word I'm looking for? Leches, but no super pervs, or I don't know. I don't even believe what I'm saying. I can't even make the joke properly.
Yeah, just discriminating against weeps. Everyone should be able to access porn at the workplace equally. Anyway, moving on. So we're going to cover some questions from our patrons today. So we're going to start off with 5 questions. 5. A whole 5-pack of them from Kate Rose.
A fillet of questions.
Oh, yes.
That doesn't even make sense. And I did it. Okay. Lay them on me, Shadon. These are from Kate. Yes. And any others, or are they all from...
We have one from MirrorOnTheWall as well.
Good. Okay.
Cool. So, first one. As you watch Yuki go from one anxiety attack to the next, how did you feel? How do I put this? I've been there. It sucks. It fucking sucks. It really does. Not to the point where I flat out left a classroom and such, but when you just feel that rising sense of dread. I've had it this week in my work, because work has been a real pressure on me this week, and I've just thought stuff like, I'm fucked. That's it. I what is everyone thinking of me? What is everyone doing? And I felt awful for him because, again, I've been there. If you've had any strong, even internalized anxiety towards people specifically, which is something I'm going to bring up as a point why I think this show is really, really good at its depiction of anxiety. If you've had any sort of feeling like that, this show will be incredibly relatable to you from the outset. You will feel awful for UK. And because his situation is also very relatable as well. He is, and this is this is a pun that I don't want to make, but I feel it's so perfectly accurate for his situation, and it would be applicable elsewhere in a different setting, in that he is literally a fish out of water. Yeah, he's
Totally.
You know.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were like gonna continue.
I was waiting for your reaction because I figured it was going to be a 50-50. It's going to be 50-50 if you're going to groan or if you're going to nod.
No,
maybe you would have done both simultaneously, a groan nod. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I felt really, really awful for him. But also elated when he overcame it at various points in these episodes as well, which was good to see.
Yeah, that's a nice point you made at the end to emphasize to people who are maybe they're an episode or two in, or maybe they're thinking about going in, and they hear how much anxiety is a part of the show and a part of the main character's life, and depicted in this real way that like can really get to you if you have experienced that stuff before. And they might be thinking, oh my God, I don't know if I can handle this. It does. Yuki changes, and that is not to say that he like grows out of anxiety, or that his mental health issues are something to like that can easily be brushed aside, or that he can move on from. I mean, they're clearly still with him, but I think just the other people in his life allow him to cope and to introduce him to different experiences and feelings and situations that he's able to latch onto to pull him out of his worst moments. So like as the show goes, he's able to find more and more outlets. He's able to be more and more comfortable being who he is, and he doesn't he doesn't like go to that red line as much as he had been doing when
that's a
he
great
was
way of
very
putting
unfamiliar with everyone. Sorry, go ahead.
That's a really good way of putting it, the red line thing there. Because it's true, like, once you literally start having your mind racing away at that point, it spirals out of control. Like, you catastrophize. That's the word I think that is used for it. And there have been studies done on this where, what, like, on average, like, people like think something horrible is going to happen, and then whatever does happen is usually far less terrible than that. I've certainly felt that way about my work, where I think to myself, right, I go into the office next week, my job's gone. That's it. I fucked up. I'm done. And I'm still working. That, by the way, I should stress, does not afford me any complacency or invincibility, but it just goes to show that, my anxiety tells me, you fucked, 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 you fucked. But that's not the case. Doesn't mean things go smoothly, of course. And I appreciate the show's acknowledgement of that, it's not the case also, I should say, that the show, like, okay, here's Yuki's situation, which I'll get into specifics in a bit, so I need to tie that into talking about the fishing in great detail. But here's the thing you have to accomplish, and then the moment Yuki gets over his anxiety, he does it. That doesn't happen. It takes a lot of hard work and hard graft for him to do that. And I'm not talking just in terms of managing his anxiety and mitigating it. I'm talking in terms of skill. Which is something else I'm going to praise the show for fairly soon as well. But yeah, I really did feel for the poor kid. And I think that even if you're yourself, like, you never really experienced anxiety, the way it's depicted is very universal. There's not a lot of backstory as to his anxiety at this point in the show, but I actually think that's in the show's favor, because it leaves it open to your interpretation as to what might have caused that. There is, of course, the very relatable setting or scenario that Yuki finds himself in, which is that he is going through the same thing as in Barakamon, funnily enough, which is he is a person in a new town, a new location. We get the wonderful travel by map montage.
Always good.
Which, look, any work of fiction that has a travel by map montage is immediately great. Indiana Jones, the Muppets movie, Tsuritama. You automatically get like a gold star from me from that. I know that's like really simple and childish me, but fuck it. I know what I like, and I like traveling by map as a trope. It's fucking great.
It's okay.
Yeah. So, okay, let's go on to the next
question.
No,
wait, I haven't answered the question.
Oh, sorry, I thought you answered this part. Carry on.
No, I was just responding to you, but I want to directly answer the question because the way that I felt was they get it. I felt that the people, creating the show, like, either have experienced this themselves or they have talked to people, and they really, like you said, made it universal and relatable. The not just the anxiety, but just the, like, it's like almost self-loathing. Like, I wouldn't say that Yuki is necessarily self-loathing, although I would understand it. I mean, I wouldn't argue with you if you made the case that he was, but he's incredibly self-critical and has very, very low self-esteem. He and just has clearly had a lot of really bad experiences with people because of, like, I guess it was because of, like, I remember reading the summary of this, and it's like, it made it seem like the faces he makes were sort of like the genesis of people laughing at him, which sort of created a vicious cycle.
Yeah, feedback loop.
But I don't know. I mean, I think in what's presented thus far, you could, and maybe they state it outright later and I've just forgotten, but, like, I think in what's presented so far, you could easily say that, like, the face is a symptom of the anxiety attack and not, like, the cause of it. It's like, almost more, like, making this whole thing universal, because I don't know about you, but, like, when I've experienced this, I always feel like, oh, I must look incredibly stupid right now.
Yeah.
And it's more of the sort of coming from that place. And okay, I'm going to lay out all my personal cards on the table. My high school experience, I've felt anime most closely approximated it were Tsuritama and Watamote, like a combination of that. Not to say that I was just like those characters in terms of their interest. I mean, hell, the main character of Watamote is a lady. I'm no lady. But, like, kind of their mental state and how they process things and their hang-ups, their fears, their low opinion of themselves, and their anxiety. Like, it was all so relatable. Like, the metaphor, like, it just kind of physically on the screen in Tsuritama, like, you see the anxiety attack coming to life in the rising cube of water that is trapping him. Yep. And it was so awesome. Like, the first time you're watching that first episode, even when Yuki's walking to the front of the classroom, you hear him trudging through a puddle of water, and you might be thinking, what's going on there? But then you see, like, it's just, he's feeling that creeping dread, that creeping nervousness.
He might even be priming himself in some way for failure. Like, before he even gets started, that water, that sensation is just under the surface.
Yep.
It's just underneath. And to get right into it, like, the whole depiction of drowning and anxiety as a metaphor, that is, I think is probably about as perfect as one can get, because it so accurately simulates what it feels like. You have the water rising, and then you go through stages of dread where, okay, it's rising, it's up to my chin, holy shit, what the fuck? Then it gets above your nose, you can't even really speak anymore, and then you start to drown and you really, really start flailing. Maybe not literally, but that's how it feels internally. Like, and that's the gradual, like, where, everything's fine, and then suddenly in a great big rush, you go through several steps of dread, and at that point, everything's completely out of control.
And you feel trapped. You absolutely feel trapped in, and they show that the water isn't, like, for everyone. It's just he's trapped in this cube of water, and he's drowning in it. And the physical symptoms of that are similar to like the panic attack, the drowning and the panic attack. You can't catch your breath. You feel trapped. You're it's horrible, and those things, it starts to, like, affect your life and behavior. And this is another way in which I feel like the show is so incredibly relatable, Yuki, like, because someone doesn't just go from quiet to talkative like so quickly like Yuki does. Like, I think that he is probably a pretty friendly person, can be a talkative person. I mean, you see him casually talking to his grandmother and things like that. But like when he is with his peers, he never ever wants to be focused on, never wants to be the center of attention, because it always leads to like that anxious feeling, the panic, the feeling trapped, and probably getting laughed at. And so this is the kind of how I modeled my behavior. Well, like I don't know if you could see this or not in your mind's eye, but in high school, I was like I never said a fucking word, really quiet all the time, just avoided talking, avoided people, always, because I did not want to be bullied. I did not want to be laughed at. I wanted to just like be totally unnoticed. And for like 4 or 5 years, that was my school life. My final year of high school was much better, and probably final 2 years, but like from ages 13 to 16/17, it was like, it was super rough. It was really rough going, and it was very much like this. And you know, like Tsuritama, like it didn't get, for me, to the point where, like, it didn't get to the point that it gets to in Orange, I'll just say.
Oof,
but it, you know, it wasn't not that serious, but it was still pretty fucking terrible. And so I can really, and like, and the way that they have people reacting to him, I think is so like, it's so how people do react. I mean, do you remember the part where, and I know I'm just going off far afield, do you remember the scene when Natsuki like basically accuses him of being selfish? You know, like, what's the matter with you? Like, think about other people more. And you're just like, as a viewer, you're like, that's all he's doing is thinking of other people.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Jesus Christ.
But the outside world can't be in your brain. Like, they can't know that. They can't see that. And they're going to perceive you. If you don't let them know how you're feeling, of course, that's how they're going to perceive you. But letting other people know how you're feeling is like just anathema. Like, you would just never do that, like, without a lot of trust. And so this is all super, I feel like, accurate kind of portrayal of interactions between teenagers with high anxiety and teenagers that are like more that can like function without having a lot of those problems in their day-to-day social world.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, funnily enough, how people perceive him, Yuki dies, how he thinks people perceive him. He's not the only character we meet in these 4 episodes thus far who has that kind of thing going on. Although the other character, who we'll get to later, theirs presents very differently.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll come to that.
Yes.
I will note as well that the other thing that I find relatable about this thing that happens to Yuki is that it's a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy thing where, again, you set yourself up to fail, you get yourself worked up, and then that causes you to trip. It's not because of an outside factor that directly does that. And that's true, unfortunately, you know. Like, if you ever had to do public speaking, for example, if you think to yourself ahead of time, like, I can't do this, and then things go wrong, then you'll only blame yourself, it'll feedback. And more often than not, it won't be because anything did go wrong. It's just because you got yourself so worked up beforehand.
Yeah.
And he's going into this environment. And by the way, I was going to say alien environment, and I think that's actually quite an apt thing to say given the context of Haru, who we'll get to soon enough, in which you could argue that maybe in some specific way, all the other people in the school are more alien than Haru is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's just kind of terrifying. But it's true, though, because, you know, Haru is entirely predictable, as we'll learn. Even though you could argue he's unpredictable, Like he has a very consistent mannerism and a very consistent personality, I would argue. Whereas
Totally.
Johnny sat over in the corner, you've never spoken to, you ain't got a fucking clue what he's like.
I know. Yeah, no, it's true. It's funny that you say can be perceived as predictable, or as unpredictable by people like Yuki. But like you said, he is so predictable. It's just because he's not unpredictable. He's just from a different culture, and that's sort of a reality. But it's really neat. Like I think I'll talk about this later. But like it's this show, and this time as I'm watching it, I'm thinking to myself like, man, more than I remember, these episodes feel like they're about like culture clash and about kind of languages crashing into each other and people trying to figure out how to make all that shit work.
Yeah. There's also something else in relation to the relationship between Haru and Yuki that I think is really important, but I'm going to save that for a separate talking point.
Okay.
So next question. Is Haru really an alien, do you think? What is really in those water guns that Haru and his sister carry? Is now the time for me to start playing the X-Files theme?
It is.
Do we get the guest episode in which Mulder and Scully arrive in Enoshima and go like looking for an alien? And then there's just Haru running around the background yelling, "Are you Mulder? Are you Scully? You're cool. I like you. We're gonna go fishing. Bye." Anyone see an alien? No? No one see an alien? And then Scully's Scully's just like, "Mulder, I don't think there's any aliens here." And Mulder just drops a stack of photos. They say, "Ever heard the water gun alien?"
I wish I could chime in with X-Files humor, but I've never watched the X-Files.
All right, the truth
only
is
Vorgelia was here.
You'll get it eventually. You'll get it eventually.
Okay.
Here's the thing, right? For everything we've seen thus far, particularly Haru's sister, when she's floating in that weird sea and enemy UFO shape thing, they alien.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
One thing I want to know about the visual depiction, by the way, is Haru has different eyes than everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Haru's like these purple irises and such, whereas everyone else just has the regular like black dots for regular people.
Mm-hmm.
They are both absolutely aliens. As to what's in the guns, this is something that I feel like I'm a bit half and half on. I'm going to see how I feel about as the show goes on, because I think the overall answer is I don't really care what specifically is other than what it does, which is very conclusively demonstrated.
Mm-hmm.
But part of me also then thinks that there's not like, can we gain something from the show making this not a scientific thing where Haru says, "Hey Yuki, this has got like some sort of mind-altering drug in it, and all that." Like, what if it was just something more, how to put this, something more Ghibli, something more magical in nature?
Yes.
Because although Haru is an alien, quote unquote, you've got to remember that every single work of fiction, whenever it uses terms that otherwise come up commonly in like fictional lexicon, like alien, cyborg, vampire, etc., they all in reality mean different things to each piece of fiction. Like, a vampire in one work is not the same as a vampire in the other. A cyborg in one work is not the same as a cyborg in the other. And so an alien in Tsuritama is not the same as an alien from Alien. I'm certainly not expecting Haru to start sucking someone's face off. Thank God for that. So I say that he's an alien, and I think he is, but what that actually means in the end is something we're going to have to wait and see on. And the same thing for what's in the water guns. I'm not really, again, so concerned about the deep, specific details of it. If it's just, well, we brewed up this drug to control people and we realized it was bad, so we banned it, but then Haru made it again in his lab or something like that. I don't know. I'm more interested in if it's gonna go, if they're gonna go into a deep description of what it is, if it serves a purpose in the story. I think that when it comes to something more emotive like this, it's probably better not to go into scientific details as it is towards more magical / mythological detail, if you follow my meaning.
Well, do you remember it's so funny, I've seen the show, but I'm gonna talk as a person who hasn't, because I honestly don't fucking remember this. Do you remember Yamada's boss talking about what was it? Some kind of syndrome that he was. It's like we have our hands full over here looking at the blah 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 syndrome. So you just hang out and watch these aliens.
The pass on that one.
Don't be surprised if the two problems intersect, and this has to do with the water. But I fully agree and endorse with everything that you said in your answer. So I'm just gonna ditto your response.
Just upwards point.
Exactly
what he said.
What
is question number 3? What is the most relatable thing in this show for you? What is the thing you least understand / relate to? The funny thing is, I have 2 things that I relate to in this show. One of which refers to my younger self, and one of which refers to my current self. It's kind of strange like that, but for my younger self, it obviously is Yuki, because, again, to lay my cards on the table, my time in high school was rough. I got the shit bullied out of me all the fucking time. Things, as you say, though, did get better in the final year. But I didn't really come out of my shell until I was like in mid to late college, which just, again, so is not the same as US college. It was when I was 17 to 18. And then it's taken a lot of growing since then. But it was just, it was not a pleasant time, and it's not something I look fondly back on. I'd say it has left scars as a result, but at the same time, I'm a lot better than I was back. I'm 33 now, nearly 33. So, yeah. And I think that, the ongoing issues I have where I sometimes look back at the pod we do, every pod we do, for example, think, God, did I really fucking say that? And I cringe. I cringe at the Final Fantasy streams, for example.
Oh, no, those are good.
I look back and I think stuff like, God, did you really say all that stuff? You sound ridiculous. You sound dumb. And I also get worried about making sure that things go right as well. And then, of course, once things start going a bit off the rails, I start freaking out a little bit. So that was then and a little bit now. But the other thing that I find relatable, and I don't pretend this is a good thing, by the way, is how much I feel like Natsuki when he's trying to teach other people. Because I have very little bullshit tolerance these days.
Do people call you the prince? Oji-san. That was whenever Haru was like, Ohio Oji in the middle of the school. I died, man. And he's just like, you bastard, I'll kill you. So good.
Oh god. But yeah, I relate to that because, and again, it's not a good thing. The way Natsuki acts is not good, I should stress. The show doesn't present it as good, and indeed there is a moment that shows that he's not always like that, which I'll get to in a bit. But I do relate to that I feel like I'm in a position where, hey, I've had family problems and all that. I don't have a lot of tolerance for shit anymore. I'm old and bitter before my time, that kind of thing. But I do know full well also that if I am with someone who is competent and engaged, I can teach them stuff. It's just that, generally speaking, my attitude is you're guilty until proven innocent, so prove me wrong, basically.
Show your worth.
You're guilty of being crap until you prove otherwise. And again, I don't pretend that's a good thing, but nor does the show for that matter. Maybe I should take a life lesson away from it.
We'll see how Natsuki ends up. Well, I've already shared the school experience stuff, but I guess to pick a different Yuki thing, the whole deal where he is on the train and then there's like a person in front of him. It's like, okay, maybe I should give up my seat, but if I do, he might get offended and think that I think he's old. He doesn't look that old. Is he old enough? Will he be mad? Oh, but I probably should give it up because he's just like that. Small thing sending him into like a fit, and like Natsuki just casually solving the problem. Like I feel like that was just, I related to that a lot. Just overthinking very small and routine human interactions. And then the thing that I didn't relate to, well, it's funny, because I'm talking about like how difficult high school was and junior high, because it felt a lot like Yuki. I'm very much not that way now. Like I feel a lot more like therapy and medication. I just feel much more comfortable in my own skin, more liberated.
Yeah.
But like I wish that I had a little bit of Haru in me during that time in my life, just not really giving a shit.
I know.
Because like honestly, like it just doesn't matter. Like I wish, this is what I fear for my kids, right? That they'll get so like wrapped up in the moment of their teenage lives and suffer or make bad choices or whatever. And of course, when you're a teenager, I mean, you just have to make your own mistakes. And when I was a teenager, I didn't listen when people told me this, but because my life felt important. But that shit is just not that important once you're done with it. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, who really fucking cares? There's so much of those people I don't remember, and not even just now when I'm adult, but when I'm an adult, but like a month later. Like, I mean, who the fuck cares? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you looked silly or foolish, or like if you're having a good time, that's fine, and other people can actually see that and sort of like respond to that. In a more positive way than you might think. So I didn't find that really. I'm like, man, I wish I could have been that when I was a young person. That'd be real fun.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you, and I think it's really key that you noted there that you only wanted a little bit of Haru. When I say that though, I'm not saying because of him being ultra extroverted.
Mm-hmm.
Simply being extroverted on its own is not a problem, but Haru as a specific character flaw that I'll be discussing in a bit.
I'd like to mind control people.
There's that, but that mind control of itself is an extension of the character flaw in question, which I'll talk about in a bit.
Sure.
But you are right to assert that it's just a little bit. I think what Tsuritama does really well in general also is that the various problems the characters have, they're not entirely problems, so to speak. Like there are good things to be had from, being concerned about what others think occasionally. You can't go around like, I mean, if you did that, like if you didn't care what other people think, you'd run around making the streets stuff like that, to go extreme on that. But there is clearly a benefit if used in a certain way to thinking ahead about what other people might think, and conversely also then understanding what other people might want in terms of Haru's case. And in Natsuki's case, and his father and their relationship, theirs is especially interesting because they both have an issue relating to Natsuki's dead mum. She's passed away at some point. But the thing that I really like about how Tsuritama portrays this is that Natsuki's really angry at his father for having moved on. And it's been apparently 2 years since then. But again, to get into it later, I think the show acknowledges, like, if you ask the question, how long should it be until you move on to someone else? I think that the answer is it depends. It varies from person to person. Natsuki's father, I think would be right to find to want to find someone else at this point. But that doesn't make in that Natsuki's invalid for still feeling bitter about having lost his mum and her not being around. It's something I'm going to go into in more detail later, but I again really appreciate this level of complexity that the show gives to its characters' issues, in that there are perks to them, but you must always temper each of them with a certain amount of restraint and control, which is the guiding, is the foundation upon which this show rests. The key, the key element of it is the metaphor for everything, which is control, technique, restraint, knowledge, skill, you name it. I mean, you talked about therapy, Doc, and a lot of therapy these days is about arming you with the tools to control, anxiety. It isn't just going to go, all right, 3, 2, 1, you're back in the room, your anxiety's gone, it's out the window in a different country, off you go. No, when I went to therapy, it taught me much the same, that, you will continue to have these moments, but here are the ways you can mitigate it.
Exactly. Yeah, you're coping with your brain, and you're not trying to see it as some sort of deficiency you have that needs to be overcome. But you're just, like you said, giving yourself tools to make it through, to make it through those difficult interactions and moments. And what you just said, made me think of Shinako from Yesterday Watate.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It says there's someone who, I think, even though it's taken her, she spent 20 years getting over this death that happened when she was 8.
It's not been 20 years.
Has it not? I thought,
No,
was she not? Oh, she was. What was she like?
she was like 12,
Okay, so maybe what, 10
and
years
then
then?
yes, it can't.
Okay,
It's not.
okay, but still a decade, right? And it's, but even then, like, part of you wants to be like, it's been 10 years, sweetheart. Like, you definitely can move on, but like, she was a kid, a young person, and like you said, everyone kind of has to work through this, and some people need a helping hand, and yeah, it just made it just cast my mind back to that when we were talking about grief and loss and personal process and everything. This is definitely a more the 2-year window is a little bit more, I feel like everyone can reasonably look at that and go like, okay, this is sort of probably around the time where it feels like you might have these like, should I move on or shouldn't I move on kind of questions. It feels like, whereas like if it's been 10 years, I could see a lot of audience members just going like, what, 10 years and you weren't even dating this kid. But anyway, enough about Shinako.
The next question: did you like fishing before this show? Has the show influenced your opinion? Sorry, of fishing in any way? I was neutral towards it. I never had any interest in trying it. I never
played the Dreamcast game that you talked about.
No, I know that pro-based fishing exists. It's a great joke to me, but I've never played it. Like, I went to the arcade club yesterday. They don't even have a fishing game there, so we're out of luck on this one. I literally can't go fishing literally on, like, in a video game form right now. Sure, I'm maybe getting some bootleg on Steam. I don't know. But anyway,
what was the one Flambeer made? Ridiculous Fishing. You get that on your phone.
Oh God, is that? Do you mean you cast? Do you mean like you take your phone and cast it?
Sure.
How many people have gone? How many people have gone? No, SHIMA done, and their phone just gone flying out of the hand, straight into the telly, straight out the window. No, not doing it.
You got to turn off that feature.
Yeah. As regards to how it's influenced my opinion of fishing thus far, I appreciate that it's gone to the level of depth it has on the technical details. It's made me realize it literally isn't. I mean, Yuki like starts off when he tries to learn to fish just by throwing the line in, like, and that's it. And that's how media generally portrays it, which is when you go fishing, you chuck it in, you're done. That's it. And you just wait. But it's not as simple as that. There is an art to it, an art that the show is very keen to show off, and to make clear that it's not just, anyone can do it. You've got to learn. It's like any skill. You have to hone it.
Also, you have to use live bait. Fuck these lures. Use real worms or crickets. That's what I've always done. Or shrimps.
Yeah, or if you're trying to fish with Otaki, you need Nendroids.
You need live Nendroids, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let me tell you, the live bait part, a little bit gross. But I, as I said at the top of the show, I've liked fishing before the show. The show just makes me think about how relaxing fishing is, and like you said, also appreciate kind of how technical and nuanced it can be if you want to really kind of get into being super good at it. But even just to learn the basics and understand how to cast your rod and stuff like that, like there is more to it than you might think. But yeah, no, fishing good.
Absolutely. Next question. Speaking of fishing as a sport topic, is this anime obligated to take the sport seriously and accurately portray how to fish for sport? Do you think it does so? The answer to this question, in my opinion, is no anime is obligated to take the sport seriously unless doing so, in my opinion, serves what it's trying to accomplish. Like, what are you trying to do with the show, basically? Why are you using the sport? I mean, when we talked about sport anime before, for example, we've always mentioned, like, why this particular sport versus another. If you're going to have, a show about team building, for example, why this versus that? Because in theory, and I say in theory, and this is not me, talking about one show versus another, you can, potentially exchange the sport for another. But then that's not always necessarily how it's going to work, though. Some sports allow certain things that others do not. For example, let's go back to 2016's classic LG Plus show, Yuri on Ice. Why did you have ice skating in that particularly? Well, for one, you had the partner interactions of trainer and trainee between Yuri and Yuri. I almost forgot then. It's 2 Yuris. And then you had what I saw in it as well. Can you answer that question from Cav? Because I have no idea about that one. I'm not even looking at the.
Huh? What's the question?
It's in chat.
Well, I can't. I don't see the Catherine's question in chat. I see Gogo Atomic Robot saying drugs, and he might.
It might pop up in a second.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe it's on delay for me.
Yeah. So what I'm mentioning there though is then of course you also have how the different figure skaters, what their reasoning is for doing what they're doing and the way they present themselves, and of course all of the technical detail that comes in with that. I mean, simply creating a show in its own right, which is heavily technical on the details of how a sport works, can of itself be a worthwhile reason to create it, to show that the creators are into that particular sport and they want to celebrate all the technical elements to it when they talk about the various techniques that you can do in ice skating, for example. And I think that, again, what's important is what you ultimately use it for, as long as it is there for a purpose and not just silly bollocks, basically.
Yeah.
So if for example, Tsuritama wanted to, it could, in theory, not go into any of the technical details about how fishing works whatsoever. And it could literally be that Haru, Yuki, and Natsuki just go whoop, and that's it. But I think that would actually diminish the show somewhat, because I think there's a very specific reason that it's doing this, which I will address in a little while. As for if it actually does portray it accurately or not, I can't authoritatively state on this because my understanding of fishing starts and ends at what you can do with a PlayStation Move or a Wii U remote controller.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have. There goes Go-Go bumping it, and now I see it is displayed in the live feed. But yeah, no, I am using that was the. First of all, that was one of the only good transparent background images that I could find of the show, for one. And for two, I knew what those flags were, and I was like, yay, Yuki said trans rights. Yuki said arrow rights, for sure. I don't necessarily read the character as either one of those things, but I'm totally good with the hearts of those flags being there, and read into it what you will as far as Yuki the character goes, but I'm totally pro arrow, pro trans, and I'm good with the imagery. It was intentional.
100%. But yeah, I'm otherwise not too worried. Technical detail is nice. If it's portraying accurately or not, I can't authoritatively state, but I again have it on authority of someone who will be joining us for one of the later pods who has fished, knows about fishing, and says, yeah, it's pretty on point with this stuff. So
cool.
Kudos to doing so. And I think that's one. I just actually wanted to go on to something else where I think in one of Joseph Anderson's videos, he's done long form videos on stuff like God of War, a lot of video games.
Mm-hmm.
He's talks about the idea about how if you're writing about a character who has a particular skill, you need to know that skill inside and out yourself if you want to write about it in any sort of detail. Otherwise, if you say you have someone who's a great artist, you can't then start discussing how their art is actually great unless you actually know how great art is made. Because otherwise, you'll be talking bollocks, basically. You've got no idea what you're talking about. Unless you yourself are a polymath and can actually both be a good writer and a good artist, as in a painter, you've got no right talking about the intricacies of how painting works unless you really want to do the research. So the other risk you run by going into such detail about how fishing works is that if you're wrong about it, it results in you losing a lot of credit with your show and your work.
Yeah, nothing to add to that point. I think that stories are better when they're about like lived experiences, or again, like sometimes those are really, really big and you have to bring in characters that might not reflect your lived experiences, but you got to research, like you said, and talk so that you don't lose readers, or at worse, seeming inauthentic is its own sin. But then there's the whole, like, you could actually really bother people by saying some shit that is not good if you don't know.
Yeah.
So next question. Do we have another question from Kate?
We have one more. This one actually comes from Mirror on the Wall, which is, would you let Haru live with you? And I know that you and I are definitely going to have different answers on this because you and I have different living situations.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I'm going to say yes in this case. Apart from the fact that Haru is shown to be, like, a terror in the kitchen by ruining the washing machine, whole place floods. Whoops. I would say, yeah, I would be okay with it, if only because, well, for one, I live alone at the moment, so I need some fucking company. It'd be nice. But two, I think overall he's a positive force. It'd be someone to, be engaging to get along with. I'd just make sure, that if he ever points that gun at me, he's just going to get backhanded out of his hand.
Exactly. I think provisionally I'll say maybe, because I mean he's just
that was a double maybe, provisionally and maybe. That was
I'm like, well, okay, you're right. That's a bad answer.
Square.
I'm like,
maybe square there.
I'm leaning toward yes, because like he's such a sweetheart and he's so cute that, like, I feel like he would be like great with kids. Like, you just turn him loose with the kids for a few hours and you can decompress and relax and gather yourself and then go back to being a parent. So, like, yeah, I think I'm leaning toward yes. Because it seems like he really cares about people and he wants you explain boundaries to him and why they exist, and that following them and adhering to those is good. Then seems like he honors them. Maybe out of technicality, like with the whole shooting Natsuki with the water pistol in episode 4.
Yeah, that was but he's like, not a good look for him.
He's right. Honest. Well, but it's like, but I understand where his heart is. He's almost too innocent. Yeah. Because he's just like, these people just want to get along. Let me put them together in the way that I know how. I can fix this. But, like, Yuki, in a very much too grouchy way, communicated to him, like, human relationships are much more complicated. And no problem, Catherine. I appreciate you asking. I mean, that is an important question to ask. But just to reiterate, yes, I understood what the flags were and am pro that, and there it is.
There we go. All right. Well, that's all of our questions from our patrons. So thank you very much to Kate and to Mirror for bringing those our way. If you have any more questions that you want to ask us as we go through Tsuritama, please feel free to drop them in our Discord. Similarly, if you are not a patron at the moment, do you want to ask us questions about Tsuritama as we cover it, get yourself on that $3 tier or higher, and you can ask him in our Discord as we go along. Okay. All right, then.
Well, before we do the talking points, I forgot, and we're going to be doing this in a weird order, but I forgot to talk about the creators. We got to talk about the creatives behind the show, because there's some really cool folks that have done cool work. So there's only 3 that we'll talk about this time. And we'll start with one of my absolute favorite anime personalities, in like the 2010s. This man was on a tear in the late 2000s and early 2010s, and I just don't know what has happened to Kenji Nakamura, the director of this show, who, like, I mean, look at his list of credits. Not just like, oh, I helped work on the show as a in part, but like I directed this show. We got Tsuritama. We got Trapeze. We got
Oh my god.
Mononoke, which was a offshoot of Ayakashi Samurai Horror Tales. This Halloween, you should be watching Mononoke because it's fucking great. And it's like 13 years old, and it still looks just beautiful. It is fantastic. One of my absolute favorite horror things in anime. It is so good. But he also directed the Gatchaman and Gatchaman Crowds, two TV series that our guest is very fond of. And are you going to whiff on something occasionally? Sure. He's made all this good stuff, so we can forgive him for making C-Control- The Money and Soul of Possibility TV.
You struggle to say that every single time. And I'm not ragging you for that, because it is difficult. But I just think stuff like when you name your show that, you're already off to a bad start even before it's about anything else.
It was just... I mean, the idea sounds like it would be appealing to be on paper. And the idea is appealing. Imagine a world in which stocks are Pokemon. It's great. I mean, what a great idea.
Nasdaq, I choose you.
Yeah, exactly. But the execution was
Jesus
shit.
Christ.
It was so bad.
Man, I always knew FTSE 100 was an evolution of FTSE 250, but it's confirmed to me now.
It looks terrible, and it's just not good. But interestingly enough, I'm seeing here, like, before he started directing stuff, he worked with some amazing people. Like, he was an episode director on The Soul Taker, which is an Akiyuki Shinbo show before Shinbo became a really well-known commodity. And he worked on writing scripts for Kemonozume, the most little known and underseen Masaki Yuasa anime TV thing. Kemonozume, fantastic. You should definitely see it. Also, weirdly enough, he was an English voice actor in 2 episodes of the Fist of the North Star TV show. He was, in episode 31, he was Killed Man. And in episode 33, he was Mantis Fighter. Incredible stuff.
I didn't think a killed man would have many speaking lines, but clearly I don't know anything about this North Star, do I?
They just brought him in to go, ugh. And that was it.
Can you make it sound like you've got very severe indigestion?
Mm-hmm. Totally. So the head writer for this is Toshiya Ono. And Ono was the head writer for The Promised Neverland. Was the head writer for both seasons of Gatchaman Crowds. So, this, I think Tsuritama predates. Yeah, Tsuritama predates Gatchaman Crowds by like a year. So, like, this was, I guess, the start of his working relationship with Nakamura, and went on to be the head writer for those 2 things. But also, there's stuff on here, Shadon, for your benefit. This person.
Every time someone says something for my benefit, I start sweating a little. We talked about the anxiety before. Like I know when people have said that, and it's something that's followed, and I'm just like, no.
This was good. This is fine. So
okay,
the head writer for the Land of the Lustrous TV adaptation.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, wrote 3 of the scripts, and also was the head writer for a show called The Perfect Insider that I might like to revisit one day. That's like a 2015, maybe 2016. I think it's 2015 show. Like, at the time, I was like, this is weird. But it is definitely a thing that I'd like to maybe have another look into. Just to
when you mentioned about Land of the Lustrous, then I'm just imagining the Land of the Lustrous Tsuritama crossover where Haru meets Petricus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that.
Totally.
Yeah, the scene writes itself. I can see it happening in your head then.
Well,
Are you an alien too?
Yes.
No, I'm a long descended line of creatures based from the sea and all that. Like you're an alien. That's the same thing. Yeah, I can see it working.
So there's not too many other scriptwriters besides Ono. Ono wrote the scripts for episodes 1 through 3, episodes 7, 8, 11, and 12. So not too many other episodes there, but Shinsuke Onishi wrote episode 4. And this person seems to, like, when they write scripts for a show, write a lot of scripts. Like, I see a lot of credits where someone wrote a script for a single episode, but this person, like, everything is like, 5 episodes, 6 episodes, 12 episodes, 17 episodes of
just give him a show already. Give him an entire show.
I know.
Guy's really working for it. Come on, be kind.
Well, he does have some head writer credits. A show called Third: The Girl with the Blue Eye, which I've never seen. Head writer also for Night Raid 1931, which I remember coming out in the days of early streaming stuff, but I never got around to seeing it. But he's got a ton of, so there's credits on, scripts for Android Kikaider, the OAV, and the TV show. Really cool anime adaptations of this old tokusatsu property. Really neat stuff. A lot of robot things, like 0091, Cyborg 009, wrote 17 of those episodes. 7 Darker Than Black episodes.
Oh, wow. Wait, stop there. Stop.
Okay.
The thing about Darker Than Black, from my memory, is that pretty much the entire show was 2-parters.
Right. Yes. He
need to tell me.
He did 3 2-parters and then the penultimate episode, which
and then okay, you've done such a good job, you're not touching it again. Enjoy. That's rude. That let a guy finish a job he's started. Come on.
And he did 3 episodes of the sequel.
Which
you dislike, but I quite like.
I've never seen it, but I hear it's got Vladivostok down to a T as far as how it looks and feels. Which I mean, for my heavy future Japanese X-Men style show, what I really appreciate is the local detail. As opposed to actually having a coherent story. Just saying.
Well, I'm gonna now list off. So there's stuff on here, like he's worked with Kenji Nakamura on some of his shows. But, and Blast of the Tempest. We almost covered that for Warui Deshou. 6 episodes. Probably the coolest Romeo and Juliet adaptation ever made. Blast of Tempest. Fantastic.
More than Baz Luhrmann's?
Yes.
That's a statement.
Yeah.
I mean, say what we will about Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, but they literally had turned sword fights into gunfights.
No, I'm cool with that one. I like that one, but I like Blast of Tempest more. But I'm now going to list robot shows this person's, because I don't get to talk about robot shows enough. Let me just...
No, this is true.
Look, Active Raid, scripts for that. Aldnoah Zero, 4 scripts for that. I already mentioned Kikaider. That one's bad. We're not going to talk about M3, the Dark Metal. Mobile Suit Gundam, The Iron-Blooded Orphans, seasons 1 and 2. Robo wrote all the scripts for it. All 13 episodes, and was in charge of the series structure, but for some reason does not have the head writing credit for New Getter Robo. This is not a robot show, but Yona of the Dawn is an excellent shoujo action thing. Oh, and The Woman Called Fujiko. This person's CV is just so good.
Damn, that's a sparkling CV. That.
Yeah, Shinsuke Onishi. Look out for Shinsuke. But yeah, those are our creatives we will highlight for this episode.
Did you just suggest the name of this potential autobiography? Look out for Shinsuke.
Look out for Shinsuke. Exactly.
Coming to a bookstore near you.
Yes, totally.
Incredible. All right, then, let's get to the talking points. And boy, howdy, I think between us, we've got a lot of them.
Probably.
So again, just to give some idea of how this is going to work. We will provide context as and when appropriate with the talking points we give out, but we're not going to go into a lengthy plot summary about each of the individual episodes. Do you want to go first, Doc, or shall I?
I can go first. And I will, I know that we probably have a lot of great things to say. I do have a lot of great things to say about the show. But I'm going to get my one, little tiny, peccadillo out of the way here.
The one blemish.
And it's not even, I don't even know if it's a blemish, objectively speaking. But it did definitely, nag at me a little bit. And that is, so let me look and find the person to point the finger at here. Atsuya Yuki, the character designer. Some really, really good character designs. Did all these Digimon Tri, which you can totally see in this movie. This is the Digimon Tri movie character designer, if you've looked at that. But so how do I put this? There's a case of same face when it comes to the female character designs. They all look, especially the young woman, at least Kato. She has a similar face, but she's got a different color hair. She's got the kind of wrinkles by her mouth to denote her age. But legitimately, this is my, third time watching the show, and I thought two characters, Erica and the lady that works in the fishing shop, Misaki, were the same person. Mm-hmm. I thought they were the same person, his classmate and the fishing. But you got those two. You got Mariko, the waitress that Natsuki's dad is into, and then you have Natsuki's little sister, whose name is Sakura. They look the fucking same, dude. They just have a little bit variations on a hairstyle, but otherwise they look exactly the same. And it shouldn't bug me as much as it does because I love cross game and all the characters look the same in cross game, male and female. But I think the fact that it was just the ladies, that there is some differentiation among the dudes. But boy, that was oh man, just draw a different woman, please. That was my only annoyance.
This is an amazing moment for me. Because I know how many times over the past couple of months I've made a point and you've gone, well, mm-hmm. And so I'm going to drink this moment up and I'm going to say, I didn't mind.
Oh, no, well played. Well played.
No, I think part of it for me, and this is just, again, and that's not to discredit your point, because I absolutely see where you're coming from. Again, to borrow your words, funnily enough. But it's true, though. I think for me, I think the art style being as relatively simplistic as it is, it's a lot of fairly flat colors, but I think that does work for it, don't get me wrong. It's a very colorful and vibrant show, which I think really goes well with setting its mood and its sense of general positivity. But I think that plays into the character designs a bit as well, where everyone is, as you say, a bit on the simplistic side, and it can cause people to look very samey. I think that to some extent applies also to Natsuki and Yuki, because although, if Natsuki's not scowling, and then you replace the hair with Yuki to take the glasses away, you can see that basically.
At least they have different colored hair and accessories to denote. Again, the three youngest. I mean, Mariko at least has shorter hair and she's taller, but Sakura and Erica and Misaki, I mean, first of all, they're never in the same scene together, so maybe they are the same fucking person. Second of all,
that is quite the conspiracy theory, and I like it a lot.
Second of all, they just
the same place.
They
clearly
look
the same person.
The hair being the same doesn't help. I get the pin that pops the balloon of all this. The counterexample is Coco, who looks completely different from all of them. The sister of Haru with her jellyfish hair and just glasses and everything. But still, the four dark-haired Japanese women looking remarkably similar. It was a thing. I mean, and yeah, honest to God, on episode 3, I had to look on the Mal and be like, what? That's his classmate is not the same person who works in the fishing shop?
Alrighty.
I know she's always just putting on her apron when Yukiko's like, you beat him here from the school. Yes. You outran him. Oh my god.
Oh dear. All right, so time for my talking points, and I want to note very, very early on that there's a lot of detail in the show that I spied, but a lot of it that I also probably missed. But I like that these details are there. I'm always a sucker for small things, so I want to start by noting how the show very quickly and clearly establishes what kind of anxiety Yuki has, because it needs to be made evident. Anxiety comes in flavors, regrettably. It's not the same for everyone. The triggers are different. The contexts are different. There's phobia is the bit that goes on the end of so many different things. Arachnophobia, sociophobia, you name it. There's a fear for everything, really. And what I especially appreciate, and I really probably shouldn't be giving the show credit for this, because this is one of those, I'm crediting it for not doing something, but I think by way of that I can explain why it works instead, is we never get a scene of, let's say, Keiko sitting down with a doctor, with Yuki there, and they're like, Yuki, your diagnosis of your anxiety happened 3 years ago this day.
Man, that would make it so much less relatable if it's that specific.
It would be dry as well, appropriate as appropriate term for the show, because the show's always not, but instead what it shows us is that we get obviously the it's a thing we've seen many times before of, hey, I'm the new kid in town. I'm being my cool gran, because Keiko is a very cool grandmother.
The best.
Yeah, she's super cool. They're moving to a new location in Oshima, and that on the face of it might be what causes Yuki's anxiety. But we get a number of really key details in the first episode that distinguish it's not strictly speaking just about being in a new location, but rather it's about being judged by other people. Because do you remember how there's the scene of the blackboard and him writing his name on there?
Yep.
There's also a similar thing that happens this episode when his name is written on the board that goes on the front of the house.
Yes.
But you'll note there is a complete absence of his anxiety when he actually goes in the house and explores it for the first time. Whereas there is that present, undercurrent or undertow, if you want to call it that, when he's in the classroom. So location and environment, So location and environment are not, strictly speaking, the trigger for his anxiety. It's when we realize that he's in with unfamiliar people as opposed to an unfamiliar place. That is laid clear to us. And the show does this completely organically without laying it out in heavy exposition, without having any scene of I'm talking to a doctor. It doesn't even happen when Keiko talks to Haru at various points. She mentions that Yuki's had a rough time and all that, but never elaborates in exhaustive detail telling what's happened. We are always shown it in a very organic way, and it helps make it clear what kind of anxiety Yuki has. It makes it more specific, so it is more relatable rather than being very generalized and kind of pulpy, if you want to call it that. And it's all done through environmental cues. The names, the way that he acts when he's in the house versus when he's in the school. I really, really like that, just on a technical level, how it gets that across. Again, without going on for a solid 5 minutes of, there was a bad experience, and I'm going to tell you about it. Engage the flashback.
Right. Thank God there hasn't been any flashbacks. I can't remember if there are any, but I actually would argue, just to quickly intrude you there, what you said about flashbacks, I'd argue the show would be fine if it never ever gave us a basis for what happened. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, me too. I'd be totally fine with it. I mean, the flashbacks we need are just those ones where it's just the super fast film reel. He's only flashing back to conversations that he had that day and thinking, God damn it, that was so stupid. Why didn't I say this? Very selective about what he chooses to look at as well. Oh yeah. No, like we all are. We play, I talk about playing the messages back to yourself. Like we all do, and we gotta, do ourself or have help picking the right ones, and not choose the ones that are so destructive to keep playing back. And he's but we just can't help it sometimes. I'm so you talk about the pod I'm so happy that for me, the pod is just a place where I can just sort of do whatever, and it doesn't really bother me if I think about it too much. Like, I know I'm an idiot, whatever the fuck.
Don't be
But
silly.
like, when I'm talking to people in real life, the pod is also real life, but it's sort of not. It's sort of removed from real life.
I always knew
brain.
you were a VTuber. I'm onto you.
In my brain, it's sort of separate. But like,
you're a hologram.
Physical interactions and stuff like that, I will like just chop it up and play it back in my mind, and just really make myself feel terrible.
Yeah.
And I did it a lot more when I was younger. Again, pre-therapy, like, and it just, as I became an adult, like, it just got worse and worse, like, before therapy, like this part of it. And the anxiety, I wasn't in high school anymore. So I was in a different place socially, but like still, and I was married and like had good friendships as well, but like the anxiety sort of it just found a different avenue to get to me through a different source. And like, yeah, it got super, super bad before therapy. And so, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this. Why did I talking about the film strips and flashbacks, but yeah, I'm with you on all of that.
One other thing I'll mention as well is then how we get this with contrast with Haru, because if it's not clear, by the way, Yuki and Haru are polar opposites. And the funny thing is, when I say polar, there's actually more truth to that than you might realize, because all of the four main characters that we've been introduced to thus far, and again, this is information I didn't learn myself. I got it secondhand. I will confess that. I'm not, entirely capable of coming up with my own bullshit. But this is true, is that all the characters have names based on seasons. Yuki, winter, Haru, summer. And so polar, opposite, is actually more true than you might realize. Yeah,
that's lovely.
But, like, so, there is a truth to that, they are very opposite in character. And so, whereas, Yuki, like, he doesn't even write his own name on the board. Sorry, not on the board, on the plaque that goes outside the house. That's what Keiko does. And then when he writes his own name in the classroom, it doesn't give him any sense of control over his environment. He's putting a name on there and putting a kind of ownership to it, if you will, but he feels none of that. Whereas Haru, in both cases, is like, he's like Cat from Red Dwarf. He's like, this is mine. This is mine too. And this is also mine.
Right.
So he writes his name on the plaque, even though he really shouldn't. And then he does the same in the classroom. But that's because to him, these are just places that he now controls. And true enough, when he's in the classroom, it is something he controls absolutely at that point with his antics.
Yeah.
But then that lack of distinction between the classroom and the home is also a part of his understanding his character, in that boundaries to him are something that, the line, I've got to treat it as something just hop back and forth between, like he is the ball in a game of Pong. He's just going to cross back and forth across that line constantly without a care in the world.
Yeah. And seen as very charming by all the young Japanese students and adults like Kato, that, this is a nice variety to have in my life. And this actually helps me remember. I meant to tell you this earlier because you brought this up about the characters having these very specific flaws that feel like extreme versions of the characters will be bad and problematic. And I think, like, a part of what I really, really love about this show is that it feels like it is a celebration of difference coming together, of people from different cultures, different ways of thinking, different outlooks and attitudes and life experiences coming together, and all the things about each of them that on their own might be seen as problems, that kinetic kind of friction with each other, that communication, that working together and figuring things out,
Chemistry.
the chemistry between them, they're reacting off each other. It helps all of them grow. This show is almost like an argument, like in a roundabout way, like an argument for diversity, right? Like because you bring together the collection of different backgrounds and the people that have just the totally different understandings of how to relate to each other, and the result is like all of them are made better. You know, like the tendency toward isolation and inwardness and withdrawal from Yuki brings out the nurturing and teaching side of Natsuki. At first, it's a little bit more gruff and angry, but over time, it softens. And, you know, of course, it's very obvious how Haru helps Yuki come out of his shell and start to vocalize what he wants in life. And of course, being around human beings that have boundaries and such is good for Haru, because it helps Haru understand how to better relate to everyone. So they're all benefiting from each other's flaws, because they're all kind of being thrown together in this stew, and they're all influencing each other. And it's just so, like, God, it's so great. It makes me feel so good.
I'll add to that by saying that without getting too much into detail about what I discussed on our After Hours pod, where I had to answer some hidden questions, I discussed, I think it might have very well been on one of our other pods as well, about the idea of how you can create characters that don't exist for their own sake, shall we say, but rather to benefit another. So by which I don't mean that in the very like literal sense of, you know, this person is just an object for that person.
The frigid women.
Oh God. But what I mean is, like, narratively speaking, like, you know, you might have a son character for a father. I mean, DS9, Deep Space Nine is an example of this. Jake Sisko, Ben Sisko being the dad, of course. Jake Sisko doesn't exist really for his own sake as such as a character. He's more there to give story arcs and ways in which his dad can grow and change, you know, as a single father, that kind of thing. And there are examples of that elsewhere. And I must stress that is not a bad way to write a show. That's a perfectly valid way of doing it. And however, it can sometimes cause problems. And I think that I felt this way somewhat with A Silent Voice, because this story is about this deaf girl. Or is it? Really? Is it actually instead about the lead male protagonist, who himself has anxiety problems? Not entirely dissimilar from what happens with Yuki, but of course much more traumatic and much more viscerally depicted in that film. But anyway, to go back to Tsuritama, what I like about it, though, is that all four of our main characters, with the exception of Akira so far, but his time will come. You know, we can't fit everyone in just yet. But they all have their own story arcs and the ways in which they're growing, and they complement each other. They're not... Haru, for example, doesn't exist simply to have, as a means of like pushing Yuki outside of his comfort zone and then realigning said comfort zone so he can feel happy with where he is. Like, Haru's got his own thing going on. He's got his own character flaw he needs to overcome, where he needs to learn a sense of restraint. And then, of course, Natsuki, he isn't simply just, I'm the fishing expert, I will teach you how to fish. He has his own issues with his family that is still tied into the fishing element, though. Like, it's all nicely interweaved. So kudos to the show for juggling those characters thus far so well and giving them all something to do and their own reason for being there. Again, writing a character for the sake of another character, narratively speaking, is not an invalid technique, but you've got to be careful how you use it. And if at all possible, I'd argue it's still better that you have every character, or at least all the main characters, have some substantial arc to them that if you're even, dare I say, a good or talented writer, you weave together, as we're doing with Tsuritama. Anyway, Doc's done a runner. I think he might potentially have gone to go buy himself his own fishing gear. I'm hoping he comes back with one of those fishing hats with the little dangly things on the side. So while he's doing that, I'm actually going to go on to my next talking point. And I want to talk specifically about Yuki's anxiety as well, in terms of also how it's depicted in that there are things that will compel him to act despite his anxiety. I can hear noise in the background. I think Doc might be back from the fishing shop. But anyway, the point being, though, is that there are things that will compel Yuki to act even when he has these anxiety attacks. Doc has returned. Let's go away from Spoppy's head. There we go. So, welcome back, Doc. Did you succeed in buying all the necessary fishing gear that you needed? That's why you went away, wasn't it?
They didn't have any of the white bait, so I'm out of luck. I'll have to wait until next time. Hopefully they've got a bigger haul. It's sold out already.
Jesus Christ, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll settle for the Nindroid that I have every year.
Yeah. I mean, I thought whitebait was like, being nice on Twitter and, being aggressive.
How many...
I fucking went there.
God. I was going to say, how many times, like, in Tsuritama could you post a screen cap of Tsuritama and then post the stupid Mad Max that's bait thing below it?
I feel like what you'd have to do with that is you'd have to have like the image repeat like it's in a mirror. Let's see, so it's got the image and it just gets smaller over and over and over again.
Yes.
To infinity. That's how you'd have to do it. Anyway, just to pick up where I was talking there is beyond also what I've said about Yuki and Haru and the location and such, we do also get a granularity to his anxiety in that we see how there are times when he can overcome it even before any of the events of the show start. Particularly like when he starts to learn how to fish, like you see like the water rising up over him, but he breaks out of it. It's a cube around him, so he comes out of it. And of course, there is an event later on in which he thinks Haru is drowned, and the anxiety kicks in a little bit, but then he's like, nope, jumps right in, which is incredibly brave of him to do. I mean, just to put it in context, by the way, like this is at night and it's the sea. Do you go swimming in the sea at night? Do you fuck? It's incredibly fucking dangerous, even if you're in a harbor. You don't do it.
If Jaws taught us nothing else, then it is taught us.
Jaws, it's just floating out with tides and stuff, and But it turns out Haru's of course perfectly fine. He's just like, I was just a little dry, and I'm like, you have a shower, you have a bath, you were in a bath. What are you doing? If it's not salt water, if it's salt water you need, get some salt. Pour it in. Jesus Christ! But again, Haru
He's an alien. He doesn't know they have salt.
What is salt? Is it the only salt Haru knows is he's probably read on the internet.
Hey.
Something his experience.
Hey.
Speaking as one. Yeah. Oh dear. But yeah, there are events that still compel Yuki to act even despite his anxiety, and that again goes to show that it's a question of control and like fighting past it. Which will lead me into my talking point about why fishing is so important in this show.
And sometimes, I really like this about the show. Like, Yuki, like, he's not, like, pulling himself up by his own bootstraps to overcome his hang-ups. That's not how it's framed to me. I mean, certainly, we've talked about how other people help bring him out of his shell. But he also has some luck, too, man. He also has like some circumstances that line up and go his way from the very beginning. Like the first episode when he's giving his speech and like his introductory thing, and like he's actually saying some good shit. He's like, I saw the ocean on the way here and it's beautiful and the air smells so good. And it made me think, I like Enoshima and I like to be here. And like, Erica is just like, and like they're like, and then he makes that mistake that I often make, and he goes, and realizing he has nothing else left to say, but the teacher is just like, all right, that's a good job. You go sit down.
That's how I do all of our podcasts. I'm just like, I've run out of things to say. Shit, did I say enough? Probably should keep talking for a little bit.
And but so that helped. And then like you talked about like the fishing part, like that was such a great moment again where like life just kind of throws him a break and helps him because he's getting in his own head. He's like thinking about how he's a failure at fishing or whatever. And then suddenly he's got a bite and he's being pulled, and he is physically pulled out of the cube because getting a bite is exciting, and it takes your focus off yourself and like out there in the world. And it reminded me, I don't know if you've heard of the author Walker Percy, but he was like a Catholic writer who wrote a bunch of fiction in, like The Moviegoer was probably his most famous book in the 1960s, but he wrote through the 80s, I think even into the early 90s. I think he's passed away now, but there was a book. Oh, what was it called? Was it called Love in the Ruins? Or the prequel? There's this 2-part series. One of the parts is Love in the Ruins. I think it was the other part of it, though, which is totally unhelpful. But anyway, there's like a character who is very much like not anxious or anything like Yuki, but in their own head about going on this spiritual quest, and is very sort of obsessed with like things happening around him as like, this is what God wants me to do. Things happening around them as what God, this is what God wants. This is God's voice, like leading me to different places. And they end up going in this cave to like just wait on the voice of God to tell them to do something. And that, so picture that as the equivalent of fucking being in the cube for Yuki. You're just totally in your own head. And then he gets hungry. and so that's when he leaves. And that's like just the thing about that whole situation of like elaborate spiritual pilgrimage coming to an end because of hunger or something like that. It's like, I don't know. It made me think of that. This moment made me think of that because, again, like, I don't know. We really can get wrapped up in our own shit, and sometimes it is other people helping us, but sometimes also life will cut you a break and something will happen that diverts the focus away, or you get hungry because you're a human. I don't know. It's just like this scene definitely made me think of that, and how, like how it's funny the different ways that we can avert our gaze from our problems. And sometimes it's intentional and sometimes it's very much not. Sometimes it's things that happen to us.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, over to you, Doc.
Okay. I want to just talk about one of my favorite scenes where the show really, really landed for me this time. Because like I said, I've seen the first few episodes several times, and watching the earliest parts of this, I won't lie, like it was a little bit slow for me this time, just because, I had seen it before and maybe I was just not in the right headspace. But the show really hit its stride on this viewing for me at the end of episode 3. And it's just really beautiful, beautiful scene when, Keito's in the hospital and Yuki has spent a lot of his time curled up in his bed, but at the end of the episode, he's out. He's casting. It's pouring down rain. Haru is there, but he's giving him his space. And Yuki thinks back on something Natsuki has told him. He ties the knot right, and then he throws the cast. Boom. He gets it he Enoshima bowls into the bucket.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. But then Haru comes, piggybacks, jumps on his back and is hugging him. And Yuki seems fine with it, like, because at that point he's really like
all my hard work is paid off.
And he's let his walls down. Like up to that point, Haru to him felt like a character who, to him, he wasn't really interested in getting to know him. He was just kind of saw him as like, oh,
bit of an alien prep.
Well, this is just a person that's going to get me a bunch of unwanted attention and is going to bring anxiety to my life. Like, this is just a person who, is going to like just give me trouble and lead to these panic attacks. And he's not popular. He's a weirdo. Not what I want to be. Not thinking about his personhood, but like in that moment, because he's already making the crazy face and he's Enoshima bowl and just throwing it out there, doing the cast. I was gonna say the perfect cast, but this is not the Goof Troop movie. He's doing the cast, and he hits it in the bucket, like I said. And Haru is piggybacking him, and Yuki's smiling and laughing. Natsuki happens to be on his morning jog by the area. He sees it happen, and he's just sort of like, "Holy shit!" And they see him there, and Haru is just like, "Thank you, Natsuki. You taught him the Enoshima Bowl, and it made him happy. And you're his friend, and that makes me happy. So thank you." And it's just such a simple, not ornate, no bullshit way to like cut all the way to the heart of like the feelings that they're experiencing, and he's just sharing it with them. It feels so vulnerable. And like, and Natsuki receives it and it sort of blows it off like not like really, but just sort of an outward show of like, it was nothing. Like it's cool. Like you did that on your own, and get ready. This is just the beginning. And then I love it when he's running, and and you see, that's right, so good. And his defenses, because he's the one. It's so funny. Like, we see. It's really easy to see Yuki as a character who has a lot of walls and outward defenses and won't let people in, but Natsuki has his heart curled up in a very tight fist as well, and he starts to let go of it. He maybe even cries a few tears in the rain when no one's seen. He starts laughing and screaming and running. He starts running as hard as he can, and it's so awesome. You just want to be there with him and be like, "Fuck yeah, dude! You can be happy. You can be happy too." And I love it. Yeah. My boys are all happy. It's so good.
You know what's funny? There's that old saying of like, give a man a fish and he'll feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and he can feed himself for a lifetime. That's, in no small term, exactly what Natsuki has done for Yuki here. And I think that's an incredibly powerful thing for him. Again, we can view the fishing literally just as the act and the sport in this show, but that's so surface level because the fishing is a deeper metaphor for something else. And if I were Natsuki, I'd be incredibly humbled that I was able to do that for someone in Yuki's shoes, even though initially Natsuki's demeanor is completely antithetical, anathema even, to what Yuki wants, which is just for people to be cool with him. Like, he's constantly saying, "No, you're fucking this up. You're doing it wrong. If you're not doing this right, I'm not going to bother teaching you." And again, this is also natural to me because I've been like this before, just maybe not so many words. But I will say that I do enjoy it when I teach someone how to do something and they are cool with doing it after that point. I feel like I've accomplished something here, but I also don't really suffer fools much, to be honest, but that's just me. But anyway, I think that is part of the power of that moment, which is that, it's not just him simply teaching him how to fish. He's given him a significant boost in his own, like, self-control. I mean, after all, never mind actually accomplishing it, Yuki was willing to actually go out and do it in the middle of the night. That's dedication. Even if he had failed the task of putting the lure in the bucket, that's still a level of dedication that few people will ever have. And he was ready for throwing the towel before that point.
Yeah. Totally. And I mean, and Natsuki really like gave him that final push. When he said, like, "This is the perfect time to cast. What are you doing in your bed?" Like, it seemed cold, but it was a little bit of tough love that Yuki needed, I feel, at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I've danced around the issue long enough. I've let it wriggle on the line a fair bit. I've been playing with it, teasing it a little.
You let it jump.
Let's reel in.
Okay.
Let's reel in, and let's talk about the technicality of the fishing here. So, okay, first off, like, let's say you're me, and I'm very sorry if that's the case, but anyway. Point being, I came into this show, and I'm talking not just in terms of rewatching it now, but the very first time I ever watched it, which was actually with you, because you showed the first episode of this to me one time when I had that day.
I remember that.
Which, by the way, this definitely can be counted as a healing anime in the same terms as Baraka.
Yeah,
I would argue so. Hell, I would actually be down with a Tsuritama meets Barakamon crossover.
That would rule. Holy
That
shit.
would be amazing. I could see all the strong personalities in both coming
God.
together really well.
You see Haru and our little gremlin child
No,
interacting.
Haru and Naru. Yes, Haru and Naru. It works.
Oh my god, Haru X Naru spinoff.
No, not that.
No, not X, not Heart, not Haru Heart Naru, but just they're just as a duo. Yeah.
And mate.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, so, and I'm talking about the very first time I saw this. I have no fucking clue about fishing. It's a thing other people do. That's all I know about it. I know it involves getting fish out of the water. That's great. That's like, my level of understanding about how deep earth mining goes. Like, you get the gold from the rock and you bring it up to I don't
Fishing.
know what that.
Jesus did it once.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was all right. Fed the 5,000. Whatever. Who cares? Yeah. Big deal. See me with that. I can get behind that. That was a happy hour right there. Anyway, yeah, the very first happy hour in recorded history.
Oh man.
Anyway, yeah, my knowledge of fishing non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, like, you might go into this show like I did, and if you have no knowledge of the fishing, that doesn't make the technical elements wrong. Like, if you know about fishing, you'll enjoy that it is authentic to that, as I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a deeper reason it's there, which is all of the laborious instruction Natsuki gives about how to control the fish, how to deal with it as it wriggles away, and how uncontrollable it can be, and how to manage it. Do you see this as a metaphor for how to handle anxiety?
Interesting. Go on.
Yeah. So that's basically it. The whole reason the fishing is what it is in this show is because it's not just a convenience of location that, hey, we need an activity that's done around here, fishing, done. But because it quite literally, in some cases, allows Yuki to escape from his anxiety, like when he catches the bait in the first episode and leaves his cube of water.
Mm-hmm.
But apart from that being a literal event, like, the fishing himself, like, is a idea of him, is metaphor for him gaining more control, like reeling in, taking control of like his emotions and all that, having some handle on them, that kind of thing, being equipped and armed for it. It gives him focus.
Yeah.
So that's why the fishing is so key to this, because it is literally the metaphor for the skill he never had. He's not simply learning to fish just to A, fish, and B, to save the world, because incidentally, Haru wants Yuki to fish in order to save the world for some reason. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I'm sure we'll find out.
Yeah. It's elaborate, but yes.
We'll find out about that at some point. But that's the reason the fishing is what it is in the show, because it is a metaphor for the sense of control that he's trying to exert. But then you can see that with the other characters as well, how Natsuki, even though he is a master fisher, like, still has his own. In fact, he maybe arguably has too much control, you could argue, because you said before about how he, puts up these walls between people. And whereas Yuki's are kind of very much like, zombies coming in the window, I'm going to board it all up as quickly as I can.
Right.
Like, Natsuki's walls are, I built these well in advance and ain't no fucker getting over.
It's like a fortress of solitude.
The Helm's Deep, yes.
The Helm's Deep, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I really appreciate the level of detail that goes into the fishing, because for one, it takes a long time for Yuki to even start getting good at fishing. And by which I mean, we're on episode 4. He has caught one fish. Great. But it's taken him a long time to get there. How long did he spend doing the bucket trial? Just aiming the damn thing, or getting the knot right. It took a lot of work for him to get there. So if you then go with my theory here that fishing is a metaphor for how you handle and control your anxiety, the show is very honest in that if you want to overcome your anxiety, if you want to manage and mitigate it, it's not going to be easy. And I adore and appreciate and respect the show for its forthrightness by using fishing as a metaphor in that way to say this will not be easy, it will not be quick, but it will be worthwhile. That's why all this technical detail is so important beyond simply checking boxes on the names of, like, fishing reel brands or whatever. It's important because it goes to show that, like any acquired skill, actual fishing itself, for example, managing and overcoming your anxiety, getting a grip on it and becoming a happier and healthier person isn't something that just happens overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It literally is a thing that you have to learn, and it comes in stages. You have a lot of different ways, things you have to learn about it. You have to be in a lot of situations, like a lot of different tools and techniques,
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the technicality of the fishing in these details is so important to this show, and that's why you can't strip it out and replace it with something else, in my opinion. I am incredibly impressed with this show for doing that. I think it's a fantastic use of this in a way that is not just simply for appeasing people who are intimate with the sport itself, but making it a key intertwined element to the other subject matter of that it's doing, which is something dear to my heart, which is mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So absolute credit to the show for doing that. Probably the strongest element of it thus far for me.
Yeah, I hadn't considered any of this. So this is like, yeah, I don't know. I never thought about the fishing as the metaphor for coping. That's really good. That's good thoughts. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing all that. My next point is, let's see. So I'll just do this one. This is a small one. Haru's not annoying. And
No.
That is, I think, kind of amazing that the show is able to pull it, because, boy, you can really see how easily a push, a little, do you remember that scene where he blows the soap suds? You little blow to Haru's character in one direction or another, you get a really, really aggravating, annoying character that you didn't like, you didn't want to be around. But for me, he really manages to toe the line of, like, being intrusive, being an interloper, but being a well-meaning one, because, like you said, he's like you were talking about Yuki, Haru also fish out of water, very much in a different world, different culture, different ways of relating, and he just is so exuberant and joyful and full of good intention that it mitigates kind of how he is habitually crossing these lines with people.
Yeah.
And I don't mind it. I could easily see me really being annoyed with this character, and they just hit it so perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when it comes to characters like Haru, there are two elements you need to consider when writing your story. And the first of which is temporal in nature. How often are they in a given episode or chunk of your story? And Haru, for my money, is never overexposed. And by the way, when I say how often, I'm not just talking in terms of raw runtime. Like, he's in it for 13 minutes of the 24. It's not as simple as that, because you could have them in discrete blocks of, say, he's in it for 2 minutes. Like, it depends on how you structure your scenes and how you structure your script. But Haru never felt overexposed. He wasn't constantly on there, constantly screaming into the camera, that kind of thing, which is certainly one part of it. Two, I think it is clear again that he has this good-natured intention as well, which is certainly a part of it. And thirdly, I think it's also key that there is pushback. Yuki in particular does push back against him for what he does, including what is a pretty egregious crime that he commits a couple of times, which is using his mind control gun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to diminish the horror of that, because that is pretty terrible.
Yeah.
It is especially terrible when he uses it with Natsuki.
Very invasive.
Because I want to just point this out, right? When he uses it on Natsuki to force Natsuki to spend time with his father, he's actually doing them both a great disservice, because Natsuki is not engaging with his father authentically at that moment because he is under the mind control. And therefore, it actually will, in the long term, do more damage than it does good.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I absolutely understand that Haru just wants people to be happy. That's a very admirable goal.
Mm-hmm.
But again, to also this show's credit, it's much more nuanced than that. As Yuki says, these relationships are complicated. If there is to be a resolution to Natsuki and his father's problems, it needs to be something that, like with the fishing, is learned and developed over time. You can't simply. Indeed, one might argue that if there's the plot hole, quote unquote, of, well, if Haru wants Yuki to catch a fish, why isn't he just constantly shooting with the water gun? Catch a fish, catch a fish, catch a fish. But that's again a case of a plot hole serving a purpose here, because, well, one, it's not a plot hole, but two,
No, it's not.
It's not really, but it's a thing that you could.
I mean, but you couldn't like shoot someone with a water gun and say set the world record for juggling. Like, they have to, like, or like successfully kill a tiger. They might die, or you know what I mean? Like, there's the fish. The fish have to cooperate.
I'm sorry, can I stop you there? I just had this amazing mental image of Yuki just waking up in a tiger pen one day, and there's just like, and Haru's just on the other side of the glass. He's just got his face like this, and he's like, Yuki, and then Yuki, there's just a dead tiger behind him. But all the kids like who are watching are just horrified. You've got one kid.
What
with
have you
ice cream,
done?
like, Mommy, why is the tiger asleep?
Erica horrified. Like,
still everywhere.
But no, the fish has to cooperate. He couldn't just say catch fish, because
they have to become a shoal.
And you have to learn how to fish. And then also, the fish have to be caught.
Well, the thing is, though, conceivably, he could use the water gun and force Yuki to learn how to fish, and then make him do it. But again,
I guess
that's not the point, though. I'm only bringing all of this stuff up to point out that, just because he can doesn't mean he should.
Well, and that just gets into so many fucking like, I feel like, you just, and then you make it weird. Like,
don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that this is, I'm not doing the ding,
I know.
I'm not doing that. I'm pointing out how, even if that were true, it still, doesn't go against the show's central thesis here, which is people need their own agency. That's what it wants. That's what characters should be empowered with, their own agency to make their own decisions, but also, to make sure they're making the right decisions. Because I'd argue Natsuki definitely has too much agency, shall we say?
Oh yeah, but even if it's a science fiction concept, you can't just go, perform the lost martial art of, I don't know, like some like weird strain of kung fu. If he doesn't know it in his brain, he can't do it. Like, you can't, and I feel like you would have to know something on the conscious side of being water gunned. Like, you would have to learn it under your own power to then be able to do it when you're water gunned. I feel like it has to work that way.
Yeah. Well, it could be worse. It could be Mr. Meeseeks from Rick and Morty.
I've never seen an episode of Rick and Morty, so.
Very well. let us swiftly move on. Don't let me use the... Rick and Morty's all right. I think it's overrated. But anyway,
there's pickles involved at some point, right?
Oh God! Anyway, right. Moving swiftly on away from that before we get involved in this discussion, and I regret everything I've ever done up until this point. So let's see. Where am I next on my talking point? Do you have anything else you want to add, by the way, Doc? Or
well, I have other talking points, but do you have other ones? Because
I do too.
Okay. Oh wait, is it? Who just went? Whose turn is it?
I think it's your turn, to be quite honest.
Okay.
So I was talking.
Okay.
We got tied into something else. So go right ahead, my friend.
Okay, no problem. So there's another scene I want to talk about that I really like in episode 4, in which Haru has gone missing. And,
oh God.
Yuki comes back from catching his first fish, which is a huge moment. And during that time, he has a nice conversation with Natsuki, and Natsuki kind of tells him, like, oh, you've changed a lot. And maybe Haru has been like a big part of what's been helping you change and come out of your shell and help relate to people better. And so Yuki takes a picture of the fish he catches and he comes home. It's like, well, I'm going to show Haru. Oh no, Haru, you're not there. And what is his first instinct? Well, his first instinct is to curl up in a ball on the couch and say, why aren't you around when I need you? The same way that he did earlier in the show when his grandma went to the hospital. And you may think to yourself, by the way, how shitty of him to like be upset at his grandma for being sick. But in so many ways, like, he's still a kid and he's still dealing with it.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way that is very self-focused and like, you know, I'm being abandoned, and so I feel shitty, and you made me feel shitty because you're leaving me, Grandma, and you won't let me in on the whole truth of it. And so he was doing that stuff, right? Earlier he was shutting down and withdrawing. And he started to do that here, but then he didn't. Then he got up and left and looked for him and took matters into his own hands because this was a situation he could control, and because he's changed. Because, like I said, because this group of different personalities that have influenced each other and have had such a good effect on Yuki, and also made him care. Like, he really cares about this person. This is why, like, friends, like, for people with mental health problems, such as ourselves, Shadon, and others of varying degrees, friends are so important, man. They really help anchor you and can like pull you out of shit and help you get through hard times. And, you know, they're important for anybody, but like, you know, you see here like a really concrete example of how having a friend, and granted, it's like bad that he was worried and upset, but like having a friend is what pushed him to take control of his life for a minute and go look for Haru and make sure he was okay, and just be proactive about things. And like, you can envision a ton of different situations where this would apply that would not involve him enduring a lot of unnecessary worry, that would actually be totally positive for him. But I think this is a net positive, also because Haru is okay and he's just, for some reason, doing the dead man's float.
Yes, folks. Haru is okay.
Haru is fine. Don't worry. Spoilers.
Breaking news. We've got breaking news here coming in from Doc. And what have you got to say, Doc?
Haru's okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Haru's okay.
Now we go to the weather.
Yeah, back to you in the studio. Yeah. So I just enjoyed that. And despite like the scenes being relatively close together, I think they're in episode 3 and then episode 4, it doesn't really feel like unearned or rushed. It feels just right. Yeah.
I would agree. I think that it's very consistent with how it portrays Yuki as capable of taking action, so that these steps feel like they can logically progress given the right circumstances. But I also appreciate how we're starting to see like more times when he's resisting what Haru wants to do as well and trying to fight back a little bit. So yeah, I 100% agree. All right, my final talking point. I want to talk about very specifically Natsuki and Natsuki's father just for a little bit, which I've already talked about before. But there was something that I found very telling about the way one of these was shot, in that they had a shrine to Natsuki's mother. And the way it was shot was that, like, if you're looking at this on the camera where I am now, right, imagine I was sat on my sofa and where the lava lamp is where the shrine is for the mother. Like, you've got the way this shot is framed as Natsuki's father is sat there, like, drinking a can of booze and, you know, talking about what's going on. And it, to me, I don't know if this is maybe too on the nose or not, but it felt like the show was trying to literally make it look like she was behind him in every sense of the
right.
Which was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of cool. But again, I think that from the way that it's portrayed, like, we don't even know the circumstances in which she died, for a start.
Yeah.
But the show never portrays Natsuki's father as being negligent or like, you know, indifferent. Like, he has a drink, but he's not presented as an alcoholic.
No.
He's not like, no.
He's just living the seaside life, man. He has a great life. Like,
yeah,
fucking go downstairs, like, work in your flip-flops, like, drink beer and serve seafood bowls all day, go fish for lunch. No, he's cool. He's all right.
I mean, if you remove the conversations about Natsuki's mother that happen in the kitchen, but otherwise everything else proceeds as normal, you'd think it was just business as usual for him.
I like how he doesn't push back either on, like, he understands why Natsuki's angry and kind of lets him have space to feel that. He's not like, God damn it, son, it's been 2 fucking years and I'm tired of you back talking me. You need to show me some respect, or like, you need to get over this shit, or like, be nice to me. Like, I've done so much for you. Can't you? You know what I mean? He just sort of like tries to tiptoe around and like lets him be angry and is never like reproachful of it, but tries to bring normalcy into the relationship. But like, it's unsuccessful up to this point.
Yeah, I agree, but I also appreciate that in his own way, he still wants his own life. Like, he's interested in the weight.
Totally.
I think is totally fair. It reminds me a little bit, only a little, mind you, of Ozma from Macross Frontier.
That's right. Yeah,
which is one of the more underappreciated little character arcs I enjoyed. Where once Ranka became her own person, like, Ozma was free to become. And the funny thing is, my own dad actually, he said, "Hey, when you all moved on and got your own lives, I was capable of doing my own thing and give it." And that's not to say you regret having us as kids or anything like that. But I think there's a truth to that, though. I think that, once children become independent, that, hey, why not? Like, I can now have my own life. Or in the case of Natsuki's father, I love my children dearly, but I do have my own needs, and I think that's a healthy way to see it. Parents should not be entirely subsumed into their children's needs, in my opinion. And if there is ever a time that is the case because of external factors, then that needs to be fucking sorted out. Like, I literally have to work 3 jobs for them, for example. Or if they are subsuming themselves entirely to their children's needs because they're helicopter parents, if you know what I mean, then that's going too far. But I totally understand his mentality on that. And I want to know one other thing about this, which I find very interesting to think about. And I think that also speaks very highly to how location is still important, and particularly how it can tie into personal experiences. So we've mentioned a couple of times the En no SHIMA don, and I'm probably getting the rhythm of that wrong, but I'm not actually casting a line right now, so screw it. But why that? Why the Enoshima Bowl at all? Is it just something the writers randomly put in because fuck it? No, because this show is written very intelligently. Because the Enoshima Bowl, as it turns out, from what we learn, is something that it's
Natsuki's my neighborhood bowling alley and arcade, the Enoshima Bowl.
It's where he learned how to fish through the Sega Pro Bass fishing.
Exactly. Smelling like cigarettes. League nights. Good shit.
Oh my god. Point being, though, the Enoshima Bowl is something that, as I understand it, I think I'm inferring here, but like, that Natsuki's father taught him how to fish, and that's where he got that from. But we also see, I think it might have been either Yuki or possibly Tapioca the duck, I'm not sure. We
haven't talked about Tapioca enough.
No, there's not much really to talk about right now, other than that Tapioca is great in every scene that they appear in.
Tapioca's great. Yamada seems cool. He's got that really funny line at the end. It's like, ignore the fact that I'm 25 years old. I'm sure we'll have a good school life together.
I know. Although I did really appreciate the scene in which Akira and Tapioca go for food. If only because I can imagine Akira afterwards saying, "It's all right, put it on his bill."
Oh shit, man, that's really good. I hate how good that is.
Stop the podcast right now. That's it. I have beats. I know it took me a while, but I have beats now. That's it. Anyway, but no, like, it goes to show like how even mundane things like this is the local food bowl like can get really personal meaning, because it was. I get the impression that I think that when Natsuki was being taught, like they would go out fishing for a couple of hours. He would be teaching him, and he'd be doing the same thing, like trying to get in the bucket. Because I have a feeling that he didn't literally invent that out of nowhere. I suspect that his dad taught him in the same way. And I have a feeling that what happened is that after the session in which they were taught, he would probably take him to that local place and get him an Enoshima Bowl. So it goes to show like how this mundane item, like how, and we've talked about this before, where I've talked about like the personal possessions I have, But if you have like something like that has very personal meaning to you, then it transcends like just being that mundane thing. I think it really helps make Enoshima feel like a lived-in place. That you have this item that has a very personal meaning to Natsuki, but it also shows how invested he is in teaching to Yuki and Haru how to fish, that he's using the same technique because it has personal meaning to him for his mother as well.
Yeah.
So I like the detail involved there. That it's not just a random phrase that sounds quirky and interesting. It actually has personal relevance.
Yeah.
And is also a way of, again, building on the idea that we see in a lot of these healing anime where these quirky locations that we go to have really tangible and likable things about, like speciality food, for example, things that you as a real person would want to have if you lived in such a place. Like if I had, for example, a place around here that did a really good kebab, I'd go there all the fucking time. Like, we all have those like creature comforts, things that we like in our locality, our local specialties. And even then, like, I remember, again, not the same thing, but when I was younger, my dad would take me, for example, to computer fairs, and we'd go out to like a local diner afterwards for food. And those stick in my memory not because the food was any good right for that, but because that was the context around which we did it as a father and son activity. And that's why it's important, similar to Natsuki here, and why it feeds into his resentment of his father a little bit as well. So yeah, real kudos to the show again for not making this something that's just completely tangential, quirky catchphrase nonsense, but actually something deeply meaningful.
Man, I love family traditions like that. Like that got me a little bit right here. Like that's so good shit, man.
It's so good.
I mean, in your life too, and the computer fair and local diner, like that got like, hell yeah, dude. I love that shit. Is so good. Like,
I have such great memories of those.
It's like going out for ice cream after baseball, or like
exactly.
During the pandemic, what I've tried to do, I mean, we can't do a lot of the things that we used to do, but like, so my sons are really picky eaters, but my daughter is a little bit more like less picky. And so she has discovered that she loves tacos. And so we, every Tuesday, because she also enjoys the phrase Taco Tuesday, and we say it like British people, we always go, Tuesday, isn't it? Taco Tuesday. And we'll go get the tacos and listen to audiobooks in the car while eating the tacos. And it's great. And it's just a small little itty thing that is nothing, but it's a nice ritual to do during the pandemic.
Ritual is the right word. And Lord knows if I ever have kids of my own, and the odds are that's never going to happen. But if I ever do have kids of my own, I'd like to have something like that where I say, like, hey, you know what? It's that day of the month. Why don't we go to this particular place that we're really fond of? It's my treat. We'll go out there. We'll get something nice to eat on the way back. It can be super chill.
Yeah, it's good shit, man.
Good on the show for doing that and making it meaningful. And that's the thing generally. I think that's something I generally say about the show overall, which is that a lot of stuff that feels very incidental, even down to like, hey, names on a plaque, is meaningful.
Yeah.
It's a show that you can kind of coast through if you want to, and it's just very pleasant and warm. But I think it's also got quite a lot of depth to it, and I think that it's very, very intelligently crafted. I think that there is not a wasted moment really in it thus far. I am very, very impressed by it.
Not to sound like I'm talking about a video game, but like the environments all matter a lot. They all feel, like you said, like the objects in them having significance, and just how bright and colorful they are. Like, and this little sound design, and it all kind of coalesces into like, I mean, Enoshima feels like incredibly this just real place, like not a big resort either, not like you'd say you want to go there on a vacation, but it's not like a well-known getaway. It's just like a small town. It's sort of like, in a weird way, reminds me of Inaba from Persona 4.
No, you're exactly right. It has the local color and the local quirks to it. I'd also reference the town from Ride Your Wave as well.
Oh man, I have that movie and I haven't watched it yet. I got it recently. I haven't cracked it open. It seems the reason I haven't is because it seems so fucking sad. Reading the story on the back, I'm like, shit.
Look. God.
I don't want to weep uncontrollably.
Well.
So many anime films that get brought over are just like, join us for another tear-jerking family film. And I'm like, oh man, these are really good, but I want to cry all the time. It's exhausting.
Rise Your Wave has some incredibly delicious looking food in it. That's the best thing I can say right now. And it made me really broody that I'm single. There, you got that off my chest. Right. Anyway, I can't also deny your point, though, about it being kind of a tearjerker. But anyway.
So many of those movies, I swear to God.
Saki Yuasa. God damn it.
Well, bring over movies that, like, you know, like the Promare of this world. More things that are not... You know, I mean, Promare makes you get a little teary, but like its main purpose is not to assault you emotionally.
It's
to assault your like visually and your like endorphins, producing centers of your brain.
Oh my God. I feel like putting that on after this pod is over. Actually, now you mentioned that, just have it
anytime.
On full blast.
Yes,
I'm gonna unleash the Kraken, by which I mean the rum that I've got, and just go watch that. Anyway, back onto the topic. I'm actually now done with my talking points. Well, actually, I say that, but I have one small thing I want to mention. This is only like very brief, which is we, of course, also get introduced to Akira.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see much thus far, but every scene he's in is basically gold, and that's partly because of TAPIOCA, but also because of some good comic staging. Like,
yes.
You know, he's he just pops up from under the sand, for example.
It's really good.
Also, Duck Curry, like, they are basically the MIB, as in the, you know, as in Will Smith MIB, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great.
They're amazing.
I look forward to seeing more of this.
Do you think it was them in why am I blanking on the anime that we watched this year that had the MIBs in it? The Masaki Yuasa. Thank you, Eizouken. Do you think it's them running around Eizouken, the Deku people?
Tsuritama could totally be an anime that was dreamed up by the Eizouken. That's my...
Yes.
I could just see Asuka like there going like, and then there's this duck, and he goes, quack.
Mm-hmm.
and Kanemaru's like, what do you mean it goes quack? Like, it's a duck. Of course it goes quack. And you're like, but why? Because why not?
Man.
Again, these conversations just write themselves in my head.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good thing I don't write fanfic. I'll just say that much.
People would eat up your fanfic.
Literally.
Anyway,
I'm done with talking points.
We haven't even talked about like the flowers. They're part of what makes this show so delightful visually. Like, but I'll bring that up because this is a really good example of something I only briefly touched on earlier. There's that great scene of Haru asking Kaito, like, why do you care about these flowers?
Yes.
And she's like, well, they're going to die, but everything dies, and that's okay. And that's why I take care of them. So, because I know that they will fade away, but like while they're here, I want them to be healthy and beautiful and bloom and just live as vibrantly as possible. And, not to go all mono no aware, because that's sort of what that is. Right. Well, then Haru, takes that really kind of beautiful speech and like starts to deploy it in exactly the wrong context, right? When they're walking, Haru and Yuki are walking to school, and she's like, why are you so bummed about Kaito? Everybody dies. And then Yuki's what? Fuck you, dude. And Haru doesn't mean anything by it, right? He's trying to cheer him up, but like, so why am I saying all this? What is this an example of? Because I alluded to earlier, like I feel like in some way this show is almost about like different languages, if not outright different cultures coming together, and trying to get along and figure out how to relate to each other. Because you have Haru, who just no boundaries. Is just so forthright and very earnest, very straightforward. But you then have Yuki, who he doesn't speak a different language. I mean, they all speak the same language, but it's like just his whole way of looking at the world is different, not just from Haru, but like you said, from other people in his class who are like, I mean, you could say quote unquote normies, right? But like who are like a lot more like socially adept, and can kind of navigate the world of human interaction in a way that doesn't end in them being pointed at and laughed at. And so there's like those three different groups, and I guess Natsuki straddles the line maybe because like, I mean, he can certainly get by in your kind of everyday interactions, but like,
Yeah.
but also he's kind of withdrawn and but I love the way, I mean, I mentioned earlier, I love the way how he responds to Yuki's saying like, why are you being so selfish? Because when you think about everything that, like, if you subtract everything that we've seen because we have we the audience get to look inside Yuki's head and hear his thoughts and everything, then you can start to be like, well, yeah, that does kind of make sense seeing him that way. Exactly. So like, yeah, I just think this is such a neat show for that. Like all these, and then you have Yamada, who, I mean, he's of a different ethnicity, but he doesn't really, at least so far, doesn't really bring anything super different to the table in terms of like his worldview or his sort of language game. But he is a spy, so I'm sure that will come up later.
Well, just to address your point about languages, what if I was to offer a different perspective on this? And I'm going to preface everything I'm about to say here by pointing out that you would be best actually asking someone who has this aspect about them, shall we say, which is, what if I was to say that maybe Haru is possibly someone who is on a spectrum?
Okay.
So I'm going to preface this with
I think I know what you're saying. Yeah.
With an anecdote about an experiment that was done once, a psychological experiment. This was done by someone, and I probably brought this up on the podcast before. I always love bringing it up for two reasons. One of which is that it's a really fascinating look into child development, and another because of a great little trivia bit. So, and it's especially pertinent given a film that came out recently. So, fingers on buzzers. This is going to be a little quiz for you. This experiment was conducted by someone named Simon Baron Cohen. Now, does that name sound familiar to you at all?
It does, but I don't know why.
Are you ready for this? Simon Baron Cohen is the brother of Sacha Baron Cohen.
Okay.
Borat.
Sure.
Very nice.
Right. Yes, indeed. Very nice indeed.
So Simon Baron Cohen is a child psychologist, and he did an experiment once, which was something like this. I'm going to show it off on visually, but it's not quite the same. So in place of a marble, I have this fidget cube. And what Simon would do is he would have a child view this little dollhouse scene in which there would be two characters. And what they would do is they would have this marble or this fidget cube be placed on this little dollhouse stage somewhere in plain view of both of these doll characters. They would have one of the doll characters leave the scene, so in theory they're not there anymore, and then they would have the other doll character move this little fidget cube or marble somewhere out of sight. And so what they would then ask the kid doing this experiment is, where does the doll person who has left the room think the fidget cube or marble is? Now, the answer would in theory be where they last saw it.
Sure.
Because that's their last memory. But what they would find with these children, depending on how old they were, and if they were, for example, if they were diagnosed with autism or Down syndrome, is that sometimes they would say that it was in the new position it had been moved to, even though that particular character had no knowledge of where it had moved to. There was no way of knowing it. But the reason that is because it was established as a developmental stage in child psychology that children at some point learn that other people hold different viewpoints that may not be contiguous with their own, that not everyone thinks the exact same way or sees the world in the same way, and that this particular development point varies depending on age and also certain developmental conditions. And this ties back into Haru, because Haru seems to act in such a way that he doesn't have much of a consideration for how other people might feel necessarily. But it's not because he's cruel or callous. It's because he sees the world very black and white in such a way that he just has a very simple course of action. How do I get Natsuki and his father to have good times together? I will mind control them. Without, of course, considering why Natsuki doesn't like his father. It's not even a question of knowing the actual full-blown knowledge of the fact that of why Natsuki doesn't like his father. Simply knowing that alone should make him then think why, and maybe that he should hold off on action. Which is, again, also a point why the mind control gun is merely just a tool, a storytelling tool more than anything, rather than anything truly important in of itself.
Yeah.
So am I saying that Haru is indeed, is he on the spectrum, or a spectrum rather? Not necessarily. But I think it's an illustrative point about the development of children that could apply here, and it helps explain his viewpoint, which is that he simply cannot consider the perspectives of others functionally, as opposed to willful ignorance or maliciousness.
Yeah, and I think he's capable of learning that. I just think he, for whatever reason, because he's an alien, I don't know whether it's he hasn't really had interactions before with other people apart from his sister, or what, or maybe he is an alien child, right? But yeah, but I think we can see with Kaito how he learns, because like he learns that when Yuki wants to be alone, we should leave him alone.
Yeah. Indeed, if you look at the questions he asks, imagine if a 6-year-old child or a 7-year-old child asked the questions he asked. They feel very much like the kind of things that they would ask. So that's why this feels like that way to me, and I find that really fascinating. But again, I just have to rewind a little bit and again stress that I cannot speak authoritatively on this because I have never been diagnosed with any such syndrome or developmental condition. Maybe I have one. I don't know. Bit a little late for that, but beyond the point though is that I would be curious, as I said before on other pods, like if people who maybe autistic or maybe maybe suffer from Downs, if you have a perspective on it like this, if you do suffer from such a condition, please tell me, because I'd be interested to hear, because maybe that in its own way can be relatable for people, like that you see a character like Haru who is portrayed otherwise very positively despite his flaws, and it understands that there is no maliciousness to it. Like people can often see like the actions of such people as being like cruel or horrible, but it's not really true,
Yeah, totally. Definitely not. And not in this case either. I would agree.
Mm-hmm. Right, I'm definitely done talking about this now. I've run out of my bullshit.
Well, that was
I'm back off my bullshit, shall we say.
That was super fascinating. So yeah, I'm also out of points. And whew, man. Coming into this, I didn't know we would have this much to say, but I think this is a constant refrain we've been doing the last few weeks. It's like we talk a lot. Who knew?
Well, I think it's all worthwhile. So, like, if we can derive this much meaning from it, then I think that just speaks to the quality of the show. Yeah. And indeed, I'll get on to racing the episodes, I suppose.
Okay.
Let's see, natural segue to me. I think the only problem I would have with the show, quote unquote, is that we don't get much out of Akira at this point. He's there, he's doing stuff, but he really seems to more exist for comedic purposes. And I wish we got some more hints at this point as to what his game, like what he is, who he is as a person, rather than just seeming to be a backscreen antagonist, you want to call it that.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Behind the scenes agent, shall we say. He's around. He's in the periphery. And part of me thinks that maybe we should have got something more intimate at this point just to spread out. Because I have faith in the show we will get the full works on that. I don't doubt that for a second. Mm-hmm. But I do think maybe they might want to slide that in a little earlier just to spread it out a bit. But at the same time, it also makes sense for them to compartmentalize characters into different sections of the show also. So, I don't know. Other than that, I really don't have any flaws that I can think of with the show whatsoever thus far. Like I said when we talked about Akadama Drive, shows that set out to do what they do, what they intend to do, what they preach to do, and then accomplish them should be praised as such, even if it doesn't ultimately mean to be that good a show. I can still respect it for doing what it says it sets out to do. If it's going to be an ecchi show, for example, and it's got all the ecchi in it that you want, I can't complain about that. It won't be right for me to do so. I might not like the show, but at least I can say, hey, you know what you are and you've fucking done it. Good for you. But as for Tsuritama, it sets out to be 1, funny, 2, heartwarming, 3, meaningful, and 4, to be, you know, deeply empathetic towards its subject matter. It treats the characters' anxieties and issues with the deepest respect. None of the mockery that happens of any of the characters is against them. It's always with them. It never treats them cruelly.
Thank God.
Never derides them, even though it'd be so easy to do so. And as far as opening episodes go, it keeps its pace going really quickly. Like, we're already going through several different character modes. We've got Natsuki's stuff going on. We've got the things going on with Kato. I kept calling it Keiko, but I think it's Kato, so I apologize for that. We've got the, you know, stuff with Kato going on. Yuki's own growth that's already happened. You know, he's caught his first fish by this point. That's a big deal.
Yay.
That's like the Dis 1, you know, ending. He's done it.
It is. Yep.
He's done it. So things are going at pace. The show looks lovely. I do agree with the same face issues say, but it's not a big deal for me.
It's not that big a deal.
So with all that rambling out of the way, I'm going to get to the point. And I'm going to say that these 4 episodes for me earn a 4.75 Enoshima balls out of 5.
Ooh, that's very high. That's very high. That's really great.
Phenomenal stuff.
It's really great. I'm going to say...
Don't do it.
Don't
do it. I don't do it. I know you're thinking of it. I know you're thinking of it. I can see.
Well, I don't know what you claim to know, so I'm just gonna say that I also really fucking enjoyed the show a lot. It made me laugh. It made me smile. It made me think back on my own past.
Sorry, I was just shaking my hand at you because I was waiting for you to get the rating out of the way. I was just like, don't fucking do it. Don't do it.
Okay.
Don't play coy with me, Doc. I know full well that you know that I know. We'll get into
I don't know that you know that I know that you know. I don't know. Well, I'm going to slightly undercut you and give it 4.5. Just because I think what I remember, and I mean, I enjoyed this a lot, but there's just so much more great stuff to come that I think the show just gets stronger. And as I mentioned, I started to mention this when you were off mic for a bit, but for whatever reason, this particular watch of the show, like the first episode and a half, maybe 2 episodes, like it could have just been the mind frame I was in today, but it wasn't really grabbing me strong. I mean, it was very nice. It was very pleasant. It was fun, but you know, I think it was after the initial setup in episode 3 where I thought, like, okay, I can really now emotionally invest in this again. Like, it's really, the stakes are high now, and I'm into this. I'm not just thinking about my high school experience and feeling bad. So I'm gonna give it 4.5. Lures that Haru dangerously puts in his mouth out of 5.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. All right, I'll allow it. I mean, I know it's a rare occasion in which you rate lower than me.
That's functionally the same thing. It's just the same rating, pretty much.
It's just a hair.
Yeah.
Hairs here.
We both love the shit out of this. It's great.
We do, absolutely. And I'm really keen to see more of it. So that otherwise will bring us to the end of our podcast for today. So thank you very much to everyone who's joined us live in chat or otherwise might be listening after the fact. I hope you've all got something out of this. I know this show has definitely been explored in depth before. And as we've often said on Warui Deshou, like from our perspectives, what we can at least try to offer that is unique is our unique viewpoints and what these shows mean to us. And I, again, must stress that if you yourself suffer from anxiety, be it mild or severe, this show will, I believe, be a great comfort to you. So I would definitely check it out just on that basis alone. Never mind anything else I've discussed. That alone, I think, is worthwhile. It is definitely, in my opinion, what could be described as a healing anime. And I think it definitely does, you know, provide you with that good vibes and a warm feeling after watching it, for sure. All right. I'll just mention as well, by the way, that if you are watching this on the free-to-air, first off, that's absolutely fine. Times are tough. Not everyone has a lot of money to go around. I'd rather you be spending it on whatever you feel is appropriate for yourself. But if you think to yourself, hey, you know what? I really enjoyed this quality podcast production created on a dime, and you would like to give us, some support, feel free to look at our Patreon at patreon.com/Warui Deshou. We have a $2, $3, and $5 tier. $2 gets you access to our Discord and also to our After Hours pods, which are now coming back out again. $3 gets you access to this Tsuritama podcast live when it comes out. You can watch it both live on air and also get the pod pretty quickly after that. And you can also ask us questions about the show as we cover it. Additionally, we have the $5 tier, which gets you access to things like our group watches, request line pods, you get access to our Showa Genriko Rako Shinjo Season 2 Descending Stories podcast, and the ability to ask questions about it as you go. But being part of our community is definitely a big perk in of itself. We have a lot of lovely people in there. We're always doing group activities. There's always something going on. So
$2.
do feel free to... Yeah, $2.
That's it.
Yeah, $2 reviews. Get that in. Definitely do. But of course, if you don't, if you just want to keep it free to air, that's absolutely fine. I'm no problem with that whatsoever. I'd rather, as I say, people keep the money to themselves if at all possible during these difficult times, even if it's just pocket change.
You know what? Keep your money. Write us an Apple Podcast review.
Yes.
You lazy bastards.
Wow.
Listen. We have and rate our podcast 5 snakes. We have 25 reviews and only 25 ratings, star ratings, but only like half a dozen reviews. You
get them in.
You punks. I need to.
Oh, you whippersnappers! You.
Yes, right. You rascals. I need to. I have some things I could give away. Perhaps we need to organize some sort of if you write a review, you'd be entered in a drawing to win a thing or something like that.
Nah, we can't do that because that would then be influencing the review.
Oh, come on. Well, yes, I'm happy to influence the review.
I think the podcast is whatever, but I got a plush toy from it as a draw. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I got a digital code for Dragon Ball Super movie. I'm about that life. But I'll review this podcast. But no, if you want to help us, of course you've heard about the financial support venue. But if you're not able or don't want to do that, those reviews really do help us. And of course we're on all sorts of platforms. You can follow us on Twitter, subscribe, and hit the bell on YouTube. We're on Stitcher. We're on Spotify. Smash it. You can follow us on Spotify. We're out there. You can find us. Tweet at us. Tell us you love us. Can never hear enough of that. Makes our day better.
Damn right.
Speaking
of which, you can tweet at me at Shaden1010. Doc, you can be found, I believe, at the Subtle Doctor.
That is correct.
That is his Twitter and not his OnlyFans account. The OnlyFans remains private. Sorry.
There are no OnlyFans. There are only 0 fans.
No fans.
Nope. This is my no fans. Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's the social media network where no one can follow you.
Yeah. I don't even film it. It's just
oh my god,
unarchived.
It's just white noise.
It's just what's happening in the real world. There is no archive of it.
Oh, that sounds pretty depressing.
Mm-hmm. That's how.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, that'll bring us to the end of the podcast. So I'll just leave you these messages, which is first off, it is Halloween. And I know that with the way the world currently is at the moment, that there's probably going to be very little going out for Halloween in various forms. But nonetheless, make the best of it that you can. I know that's not easy. I know it's not a substitute for the reality of being able to go see your friends, get all dressed up in spooky outfits and all that. But if you can do something, anything for it, I think that will help, definitely. And lastly, because we don't remain apolitical on this podcast at all.
I was going to bring this up if you didn't.
I knew you were going to mention this because it's been on my mind a lot lately, which is, it is, of course, the US election next week.
Oh, Lord, have mercy on me. How am I going to get through the night?
Going to bed that evening is going to be a trial for me because with the time zone thing, I'm going to wake up the following morning, turn over and look at my phone and go, yay! Oh, fuck me. It's going to be one of those two reactions.
Yeah.
Which is it was 2016? Twice, I should point out. Thanks, Brexit. Dickheads. Anyway, so all I'll say is this, right? If you've not already voted, go fucking vote. I don't care who you vote for, but well, actually, I do. I do want you to vote for Biden.
I care. Yeah.
Even though he's a milquetoast motherfucker.
Yeah.
But I do want you to at least go out and fucking vote.
Lesser of two evils. And all that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Go out and fucking vote. Okay. Do that, and
it won't solve all your problems, but it will create a foundation upon which we can move forward. We certainly cannot move forward if we don't have some kind of change.
Yeah. Fucking do something. But otherwise, we're going into the end of the year. Things looking rough, but just stay positive. Do what you can safely and healthily as possible. Wear a mask if you can. Take care of yourself. Take care of yours. You know, there's still a lot to like out there in the world, in my opinion. I mean, rediscovering Tsuritama is certainly one thing for me right now. So if nothing else, if this podcast has given you anything to take away from right now, is that there's still joy to be found out there. Even if it's in something older that might have been gone by your wayside, we'll keep on going. There's plenty to look forward to. Don't worry about that. But otherwise, from me and Doc, have a very good weekend, a very good evening, very good Halloween. I hope you all take care, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. And as we often say on this podcast, embrace your everyone. It's the end of the universe. Good night.
Bring back